There we are. We'll let people kind of get in. What's up, fellas? What are y'all doing?
Are we live?
Afternoon? Anybody
We-
staring directly at the eclipse today or what?
Yeah, I almost pulled a Jeffrey Lee and had my sunglasses on at night, but
Or Corey Hart?
yeah, Corey Hart, Gus Malzahn, whatever you want to call it, man.
On the Collins show last night, I expected to get something on that I was able to pull Corey Hart because y'all always make fun of me for being young. But I got Corey Hart.
Bro, I honestly was impressed. I'm gonna give you that one, Cole, for sure. I was impressed.
Thank you.
But Justin, how's life, man? I think we're all good here. We had an opportunity to catch up last night on A-Day, but give us your opening thoughts, man. I mean, it for somebody who was probably boots on the ground, had an opportunity to see a litany of things and is used to covering this team. What were your thoughts?
Yeah. All right, let's do that. So here's what I'm thinking. And we're just going to sort of we'll sort of brainstorm this as we go. I want to hit every position.
Sure.
I want to deep dive as much as you want to deep dive. So Cole, Jet, myself, Cole, whatever you want to talk about is on the table. We can go as long as you want. We got this thing scheduled till about 5. I figured that's probably enough time to get into every position and backups and whatever we want to talk about, whatever storyline, whatever. But we'll sort of do that in a second. We'll sort of deep dive. If you're watching this, by the way, if you're chiming in live, pop questions and Zach will get them in. If you ask a question, Zach will get it in. Just try to stay with us. We'll kind of go offense to defense. So if you got a question about a position later on, we'll just save it. If you got a question about a position that we're talking about right then, we'll make sure and pop it in. Zach can put it in the chat or chime in how he wants, whatever. But we'll make sure and get the questions in. So I don't know, man. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I sort of despise A-Day. I just kind of hate it because it's just it used to, I don't know, man. Growing up, it used to be more fun, nice. I mean, like you just called that, dude. You just called that. Oh my gosh. Alan was joking beforehand. You're going to get a Bruce question. The first question's Bruce. Love you. We'll get to it. Awesome. So yeah, A-Day, I don't know, man. It's changed a lot because of, I don't know if coaches are more paranoid or there's just more media out there. Everything's on TV. And so I feel like what you see is less of, you just can't take as much from it. So I just don't love it. I don't like to draw big conclusions. That's why we're going to kind of talk about all of spring today. We definitely can talk about certain guys we saw, but I don't know if you could take huge conclusions out of it. I would probably say my number one takeaway before we get into position by position would be in the trenches for me.
Yep.
I thought, and Cole and I are going to write something that'll hopefully be up on Tuesday. That's kind of something he liked and something I liked at each position, and then kind of a question we have at each position exiting spring. But one of the things I wrote about was the trenches. I thought that the defensive line was the huge question mark. Like, I don't know if this group is going to be ready for the SEC. I don't know where they stand. And I thought the offensive line had a chance, they still do, whatever, to be better than last year. I'm thinking this offensive line behind Connor Lew and Dylan Wade and Percy Lewis coming in, Jeremiah Wright, if it kind of clicks with him, I'm thinking this is going to be a top 6 offensive line in the league type deal. And not that they can't, it's just the spring, but I was surprised at the lack of the ability to run the ball. I mean, outside of maybe a run by Damari Alston around right in, I think maybe first half, not much happening in the run game. And Hugh Freeze said afterwards the defensive line dominated the line of scrimmage. That surprised me because we've heard that the defensive line is the question mark and that they're still going to go portaling, looking for bodies along the defensive line. So that was probably one of my biggest takeaways looking back, was that the offensive line didn't maybe dominate the way I thought they would, and the defensive line more than held their own. And it goes with something we heard in the spring, which is defensive line and blitzes. You can toss the linebackers in there too, but they were getting after the quarterback, pressuring the quarterback, and that Durkin was dialing some stuff up and the offensive line was giving up some pressure. So that's probably the biggest takeaway for me coming out of the spring. I thought the offensive line was maybe going to be further along. Not that they can't get there, but the defensive line and their ability to sort of compete right there, especially in the spring game, was a little surprising. That's probably the thing I come away with. What about you?
Well, let's go, Cole. 2 minutes, big overview. What did you think, my man?
Hey,
I know, right? I'm getting all kinds of emojis and emoticons going on right now.
I still have yet to. I've yet to make one of those happen. That's my goal. Anyway,
I think you got a thumbs down once. I honestly do.
Did I?
I think so.
That's fitting. Okay, boy, I've been Mel Kiper deep diving this game. I've only made it through the first quarter so far. But I'm with you, Justin. I am pretty impressed with how the D-line played, but I am unimpressed with how the running backs played. I think the offensive line is going to get a lot of hate or whatever you want to call it for not being able to run the football, but saw plenty of times when there was more than enough to be had in the run game, and running backs didn't do it. So that was surprising to me. In fact, if there's one thing that I do really take away from A-Day is that maybe the running back room is not the strongest group on the team anymore. And that's how I had it last year. And it's not because of how they performed. I think there are other rooms that have passed them now.
I agree, Cole.
And look,
you're opposite of me. So do you think I'm off base? And maybe I'm not like overly critical, but do you think I'm off base and thinking the offensive line maybe wasn't as good as I thought they were? Or you're putting maybe you're putting that more on the running backs, or do you think we're both right to a degree, or what? Like,
I've only seen the first quarter extensively, like I want to look at it. And from that quarter, it was the running backs. I still got a long way to go on it. I think the offensive line wasn't as good as we thought they should be, though. I agree with that. I actually thought the second team offensive line, which the tackles were usually Tyler Johnson and Favor Edwin.
Yeah.
They pass protected well a few times.
Yeah.
The Hank Brown throw to Cam Coleman was protected about as well as good. Now that was Percy Lewis at left tackle, and I think it was whoever the starting right tackle is, Miller. So, which it was a slide deal, so it was actually Fairweather protecting on the backside and Cobb chipping, running back Cobb chipping. So anyway, that play was protected really well. It's a reason why Brown was able to get a clean throw off and a good throw, maybe a little bit overthrown. And, Zach pointed out last night that ball was maybe a little bit overthrown, and I agree with that. Think about this, though. If that's a ball to Bryce Kane, same ball, is it caught? Because that's what Cam Coleman brings. Yeah. So much range. What a catch radius on that guy.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. To me, quarterback play looked better because of everything else. I don't think quarterbacks have made some crazy leap. That's another takeaway for me. I don't think they made an unreal leap. And I'm speaking mostly to Peyton Thorne. I think he looked pretty similar to what I saw last year, especially with the RPOs. Pretty good at that. But the receivers are better. I saw some throws that would have been incomplete a year ago that were complete in this game. And in turn, that makes the quarterback look better. So that is exactly what we've been talking about, what we've been harping on. And I think that was the case in this game. It's already getting better in that aspect.
I agree with the both of you. I mean, I think there are absolutely more playmakers on this team. I think we struggle to run the ball, whether that's the offensive line or the running backs. And probably, Justin, I think it is a combination of both. Honestly, you were trying to execute a lot of outside run, a lot of outside zone in that game, and that's not something that necessarily that Auburn leaned into last year. It's a little bit of a different look from the running back position as far as where to hit your hole, kind of how to judge that somewhat, how to press it. So I think there's probably a learning curve there with the running backs on some of that. The other part of it is you were mixing and matching from the offensive line. So you were rotating between about 2 or 3 different groups. And when you do that, I think it's hard to get consistency to run the football or to be an offensive line. It's being a cohesive unit. And so when you don't have that continuity play to play every down, sometimes some things will, it's hard to consistently do some of the things that you need to do to be successful in the run game. especially on zone running plays. I thought that Auburn's best last year, it was gap scheme and inside zone. And so now to kind of do something a little bit different, and maybe that was by design. What you said in your opening, Justin, is you don't take too much out of A-Day anymore, and I think that's spot on. I think coaches now are absolutely paranoid. They're trying to play everybody they possibly can because, A, the transfer portal has changed how you coach and how you approach these kind of games.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody to walk away feeling that they got slighted or they didn't get as much playing time or they're in a different place on the depth chart, because you want to ensure that you have retention on your roster, specifically from those you want to retain. Now, let's be honest, there are kids that this coaching staff probably doesn't want to retain, and they don't mind that they enter the portal. And then there are others that they absolutely are trying to protect and safeguard and make sure that they're there moving into next season so that you have adequate SEC level depth. And I think that's changed the approach, not just at Auburn, but at a lot of different schools. I mean, I think Ole Miss is actually doing away with their Grove Bowl. They're doing like some kind of like Olympic type sport deal or something of that nature. It is like a hodgepodge that Lane has come up with where they don't have to actually expose themselves and play a game.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are just taking a different approach now in the day and age of tampering the transfer portal and everything else. But it's more about the collective group, the aggregate of practices, right? And what the overall production, the feedback was that you got out of that more than you take out of one singular practice. And I think the collective thought is the DB room is now the deepest room, period, on this team. In my opinion, it's the deepest and most talented.
I agree.
And that Cam Coleman lived up to his billing. Those were the two things I took away from A-Day that I honestly believe will transcend into next season. I think the offensive line will play pretty well as a collective group, and they'll dial in on some things, and when they can game plan and get specifically ready for certain teams, I think they'll look even better. This was a very basic look. And like Cole talked about last night, they're probably trying to do some things that they haven't done to put guys – they're using it as a practice, right? They're wanting to see who can do what.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
and I think – yeah, sorry.
No, you're good, Justin. Go ahead. But again, the two takeaways, the DB room, I thought they were great. Cam Coleman is as advertised. And maybe the defensive line is better. But again, you were matching up some ones against twos.
Yeah.
You were matching – you know what I mean? It's
hard to go that far.
Exactly. Hard to go that far. From the people I've talked to, I think you still need 1 to 2 more interior defensive linemen. But I do believe that VKW was impressed with his guys on that day and is encouraged and will take that moving forward into the fall.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the DBs. That's another thing. I heard Cole say I agree, and I'm with you there. I'm not going to go back and compare roster by roster. Okay, I'm not going to do that. But it's just memory thinking about it. It's as deep as a DB room in terms of talented bodies and plus potential that I can remember. Still some development needs to happen. A lot of guys who don't have big game experience, that will come, but safety, corner combined, a lot of talent, a lot of length, a lot of size. Like, we'll see how quickly they can come on, but that's a talented group. All right, we got a question. Do you want to just start? Do we want to start?
Yeah, y'all.
Position, or do you want to just start with whoever the question? Because I want to go position by position and talk about, make sure we sort of hit on guys. But I see this question about D-line. Let's just start there since it's up. We'll start with the defensive line, and we'll toss. For me, by the way, I toss edges in with the D-line. Like, or Buck, I should say.
Yeah,
Buck.
yeah.
I kind of just feel like they're more a defensive lineman than a linebacker. So we'll toss Buck in with defensive line when we're talking about this group. And we'll let Will sort of start us off. Should we take the D-line play with a grain of salt, considering they see these run plays in practice? Alan, you sort of hit on that. I thought they played well. I thought TJ Lindsey, I remember posting on X, I said TJ Lindsey has flashed a few times, and Freeze specifically mentioned him after the game.
Mm-hmm.
Brenton Williams, I thought, made a couple plays. But I like TJ Lindsey was an intriguing guy. But what are our D-line / Buck thoughts? And do we take the fact that they dominated, do we take that with a grain of salt?
I think take it with a grain of salt, but be encouraged. Like, don't take it as a slight that I think the defensive line is going to be horrible moving into next year. I just think you need some additional bodies. I think this kind of roster that you have right now, you have some really talented young kids. And you're right, TJ. I think the biggest takeaway for me on the defensive line, they hit on Malik Blockton. They hit on TJ Lindsey. They hit on Amaris Williams. They hit on all the kids in this past class. And so that's the thing to take away, but they're young. And when you have young kids in a room, you don't want to put too much on them too quickly. And by that, I mean significant snaps. So you're probably going to roll a lot of bodies through there where you're going to want to cap them out at about 30 snaps or so, 25 snaps or so to make sure that they stay effective. They're not overused. And so that you're fresh moving into the back half of your season, because I did think, and Cole, I want to get your thoughts here, but I thought we wore down this past year because the rotation was smaller than they necessarily wanted it to be. I thought you wore down some, with the exception of the Alabama game where they really kind of came to play. And, they played that on an emotional high. But having a room where you can do some load management to make sure you get throughout the year and you can keep healthy bodies and rolling in and out, because you just don't have that explosive proven playmaker right now. I think that's going to be huge for this team. And if you get two more, I think you can utilize that approach. But as far as what you saw in the spring game, to expect that moving into the fall, I think that'd be a false narrative. I think they're going to be good, but I think they still got a ways to go. Cole, what were your thoughts?
Well, y'all know I can't help but poke holes in narratives sometimes. I go against the grain a lot because I do extensively look at the film. I got the live play breakdown going on in the corner that I'm still working on. And I said last night on the show that Trill Carter, the Texas transfer, was probably the most consistent. But then I watched a play where he gets rolled about 5 yards downfield in the first quarter. It's things like that you miss on the first watch, Now that play, here's the interesting thing. And this is what most people will look at. That exact play where he gets rolled off the ball that far was a loss of 2 yards. Keldrick Falk, Dorian Mausi make the play. Y'all may remember it if you've watched, the replays. But there was a place for the running back to hit it, and he didn't. It was right behind Braden Joyner and Tyler Johnson, who roll Trill Carter off the ball. So as I keep going through, I'm going, defense was good. Defensive line was definitely good. I'm not taking that away from them. But there are some things there that still make me concerned. Still concerned for me. Definitely, I think 2 is the number for interior D-line in the portal. I think anything less than 2, and I'm still concerned. And it's got to be 2 good ones, because I think you actually have pretty good depth pieces right now. Mm-hmm. I don't see a guy that is a dominant player on the defensive line.
No, there's not.
And that's my main concern. That's the problem I have with the D-line right now. Some good players, some decent players, some guys that can definitely contribute and help you, but nobody that's going to dominate, nobody that's going to take up space, nobody that's going to stop the run consistently. I don't see that. So that's why I think portal is a must here. I would put all my resources into it if I'm Auburn.
Well, I mean, Freeze said post-game, and he's mentioned it during the spring, but he specifically said after A-Day, D-line, I think he said receivers. I want to go back and make sure, but I'm pretty sure he said D-line receivers. Like that's we need another player we need some depth at both players, playmakers, whatever. They're going to try to find a couple of more options at both those positions, D-line and receiver. For D-line, so you talk about playmakers, and I agree with Cole. There's not one. Marcus Harris was one, but there's not a guy now. There's not a dude. I don't even know who the closest would be. I would love to say Keldrick Falk, but he's just 1 year into college. I feel like he's got that potential, but I don't know that in terms of raw potential, maybe he's the closest to being like the man or being a guy that you could count on every play. But the guy that you would want to say that, just to be honest, I not that I've been critical. I just am not I just always feel like I want to see more is Jason Jones. And now he didn't play, right. I don't think a ton. I don't think he played a ton in that game. He might be the closest. Like, he's got the size, he's got the experience. He's a guy that in Freeze, I think, specifically mentioned his name about a week ago. Jason Jones needs to continue to come on. He specifically said it. That's probably a guy you could point to on that defensive line. There's different guys that could step up. There's guys that, if they could get TJ Lindsey or Bobby Travis is an X factor. DJ Reed's an X factor. Jason Jones, though, has been there, done that, and has the size and has the strength. He's probably the guy that you could maybe put the most weight on his shoulders. Like, dude, it is now or never. You could massively help this defensive line if you rise to the occasion, but you listen to Freeze and he's like, I need more. I still need more from him.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talked about it. The standard's high. Marcus Harris set the standard last year as far as what the expectation should be from an interior defensive lineman, and I don't know that Jason can give that for you. Like, I honestly believe he's a 30 snap a game player who's going to be solid against the run, and I just don't know how much he gives you in the vertical pass rush game. I mean, I'm not trying to trash the kid. He's a great kid, team leader, somebody that you absolutely are going to have on the field this year. But I don't think he can replace that. And the closest thing you have on this current roster is Keldrick Falk, if he can take that kind of step that, say, Marlon Davidson took in his second year, or that Derek Brown took in his second year. Is he capable of that? I think he's got that kind of skill set, but I don't know. He was injured, had a wrist injury, I think, last year, which hampered some of his development, hampered some of his strength training. He's going to get an opportunity. He's done that in the spring. His body looked better to me. His technique looks to be coming around some, and so he'll get another summer to really kind of transform his body. And then what can we fish out of the portal? Because I'm with you. At the end position, I feel okay with having a kind of a blossoming star. Like, you've got that, but you don't have like a sure thing. The other two spots, I don't know that you even have a blossoming star unless you count the true freshmen in those positions. Like, if you count Malik, then yes. If you count TJ Lindsey, yes. And they've got Amaris Williams playing buck. At least that's where I saw him lined up some.
Yeah.
So they're cross-training him between both edge spots right now. So it's going to be interesting.
Hey, Zacchaeus Walker's another one at that end that you're hoping. I mean, what a great kid, by the way, that we talked to him the other day.
Oh,
I mean,
you know what?
Such an awesome dude.
As long as he's been in Auburn, I've never talked to him, Justin. Not once. That was the first time.
He hadn't done much, and then he almost dipped, and then he came back, and but he was super great attitude. Really, really liked talking to him. He was awesome, like great spirit about him. Now he just needed can he live up to some billing?
Hey, before we move on to the next question, I asked this on the board probably a month ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Where would y'all, after seeing this A-Day game, and obviously, Justin, you and I have seen a lot of practice, where would you put your resources for the transfer portal right now? No, not, we don't know who's leaving yet, obviously, but let's just say in a perfect world, nobody leaves. Where does this team need help if you're able to get it right now?
Well, I know. I mean, I agree with defensive line. You need depth. I agree with what Hugh Freeze said. Like, you can never have enough. And I still think that's a position with a lot of unknown. I know Freeze said receivers, and I get that. Like, I do get that. They need playmakers at receiver. You do have Perry Thompson coming in. You do have Malcolm Simmons coming in. Don't exactly know what to expect from them coming in the summer, but a couple of good bodies, like what I saw from Robert Lewis. We'll get into receivers. I would sort of lean I don't love, we'll talk about this position too. Linebacker, is maybe one I would see if there's somebody else out there. I don't love the depth there. I think you're like an injury away to Asante or Keys, and you're in trouble to me. So I would look again and say, is there a veteran at linebacker that I can bring in? Because there are a couple young guys, Mousy we'll see, but you're an injury away from being in a world of hurt, I think. So I get the receiver because you need playmakers, and that's just such a massive focus for Hugh Freeze last season to this season is playmakers and guys, all that. But I don't love the depth at linebacker, so I'd probably love to see them can we go get, is it too late or whatever, but can we go get somebody at linebacker, somebody that we feel like could go play, that will play and be a big part of the fall.
Yep.
Cole, answer your own question here, and then I'll go last, man.
If if I'm allocating a percentage of my resources,
Mm-hmm.
I'd go about 75-80% D-line edge.
Yeah.
And I do think Auburn needs another edge, and it's the exact same reasoning you just used, Justin, for linebacker. What if Jalen McLeod goes down? Where are you at then?
Yeah.
You got 2 freshmen, and look, they look good. Don't get me wrong. And DJ Barber looks good at linebacker. I think the future is there, but that's what we keep trying to say is this is a bridge year. You got to get those guys going. They need a year under their belt. So if you're asking them to be the starter by chance of injury, I don't like that. So I'm thinking a 1 year mercenary, as some say,
Sure.
to come in and help bridge the gap for those young, really, really talented pieces to come up. So I want 1 edge, 2 interior D linemen. One of them's got to be a nose. Got to be. And receiver. I think receiver's the other one, because when I'm looking at receiver, I see potential in Sam Jackson to be good. I see Robert Lewis is pretty sporty, by the way.
Yeah.
Cam Coleman, we know what he is. And Camden Brown, where's he at? Looks better. I saw some things, some small details that looked a little bit better about him, but behind him, and it's not based off the A-Day game. This is based off of practices and things that we've seen and talking to people too. I don't know. I'm concerned there. I think you need more, especially if you're trying to open up this passing game, and it looks like they are based on the play calling. I think you need another one.
I agree, because having to lean into 2 freshmen coming in and look extremely talented. Malcolm Simmons is one of the best athletes I've ever seen high school tape up. As far as being able to play football, basketball, do everything all over the field. I mean, he's just an absolute freak show talent. And then obviously Perry Thompson, not a lot he can't do on the football field. But I'm with you, Cole. I think one more veteran wide receiver to give these guys time to acclimate. And then what is Sam Jackson? Does he, like, I've seen some potential. I thought he looked good in certain spots, but is he ready to carry the load? And is he an outside wide receiver? Is he better featured in the slot? And that's kind of what I don't think you necessarily know right now. So you give yourself some options there and allow kids time to kind of acclimate. I'm with you. Your percentages are spot on as far as how I see needs. Like, I would go 50% interior defensive line, 25% edge, 25% wide receiver, and then best available. If you have a quarterback that transfers out, say Holden or Hank decide to enter the portal, and I haven't heard that's going to happen, I'm just throwing that out there. I think you need to go get a quarterback too. I do not like the thought of going through an SEC season with 3 quarterbacks, 2 of which would be a redshirt freshman and a freshman. Like that to me is not a recipe for success if something were to happen to Peyton Thorne in an ever crucial year where Hugh Freeze, for the trajectory of recruiting and also to keep a fan base and a booster base happy in today's age of NIL. I mean, I think you need to show 7 or 8 wins with a positive trajectory. And I think Hugh Freeze is smart enough to understand that that's what he needs to accomplish. And to do that, you got to have adequate depth at each position.
And we're going off of course, how it lays today. There's going to be some guys leave. I hate to, again, be the bearer of bad news, but that's going to happen. That's the law of averages, as we say, Alan. It's going to happen.
Probably receivers, I would guess.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
What's our question here?
Let's get to that in a second. Anything else on D-line before we move on from the defensive line position? You mentioned that buck position. Brenton Williams is there. Joe Phillips is there. Didn't see a ton of him. Jamonte Waller didn't see a ton of him. Lindsey Falk, DJ Reed, Malik Blockton, Zeke Walker, Trill Carter, Gage Keys. Like, some of these guys, Bobby Travis, I thought showed a little bit. Anything else from that position, good, bad?
Yeah.
If you want to point out.
I'll say that I may be in the minority here, but I was a little bit concerned about Keldrick Falk coming into this season after watching him as a freshman. Absolutely flashes of brilliance from him, but how consistent can he be? I mean, he's really being relied upon right now. Boy, he looked good in that game, and he's looked good all spring. So I wasn't too surprised by him looking that good, but he's more powerful than he's been in a long time. He's starting to get that mean streak a little bit, And boy, he's one of those guys. Like if you were to piss him off, watch out. Like I want to see him play more pissed off.
He does have a little bit of a nice streak. He's a nice kid. He's a nice
Yeah.
kid. He's a smart kid, nice kid. Yeah, you want to see him get real physical, real nasty.
And to me, he looked like he was pissed off a few times.
Yeah.
And if that happens, that guy's as good as anybody. I'm telling you.
I agree. I mean, that play he made on the tackle for loss, he was playing pissed off on that play, and you could tell when he got to the sideline. But I honestly do believe, and I've talked to some people on this, that wrist injury really hampered him last year. He just wasn't able to weight train the way he needed to, and he kind of got bullied some in his freshman year by some veteran SEC offensive linemen. So I think he's taking that personal, and I think he's taking his weight training serious, and we'll see what a full summer does for him and how he's able to continue to build functional strength and work on his craft. But I'm with you, Cole. I did like what I saw from him. And Brenton Williams, this is a kid that I thought when we took him, I was like, okay, he's a sleeper in this class that has a chance to really be something, that 3-star gem that gels. And if you can get him to stick on the team, I mean, because obviously we understand the transfer portal. Sometimes you're here today, gone tomorrow, if the playing time's not necessarily there. But if he sticks with it, I think he's a kid that can eventually turn into something. I thought he played well against the run and flashed a little bit more in his pass rush as far as how he was nuanced with his hands somewhat than I was expecting. So I hope to continue to see his growth and development. I would love to see a local kid from Opelika, stay at Auburn and continue to improve and maybe one day be in the 2-deep rotation.
Yeah, I like how he's built. All right, let's get this question, then we can move on to, let's say, linebackers. Patrick says, do y'all think we see more 3 or 4-man fronts this year since Durkin has done both? We could probably plenty of time to answer this, but a quick thought, Cole?
I noticed he likes the 3-man front when he's going to dial up a blitz. He loves that. He likes to have a nose, and he likes to disguise the front. So he'll have Jamonte Waller, who's an edge, drop over into inside backer and then walk up in the B gap or A gap or something. The reason he likes 3-man fronts because it opens the B and A gap on both sides, and you can play around with it and confuse, protection. So that's where I've seen 3-man front the most. Everything else has been mostly a 4 look because you're counting the edge as the D lineman, as you said. I mean, he's called an edge because he stands up, but it's really a 5 technique. That's what it is. So you have 2 5 techniques, a 3 and a nose. So that's a 4 front, in my opinion.
Cole, by the way, if you see any questions on the board, just pop them in when we're in that position group. If it's just whatever we're talking about, if it applies, just tag it in with what we're talking about.
We'll get to those. Let's roll through these and then we'll check those out later.
All right. Let's go to linebackers. Eugene Asante, Austin Keys. Anybody stand out in the game? I was trying to pull up stats real quick on the linebackers. I wrote about it a little bit, so I won't. I wrote about it a little bit, but I mean, Robert Woodyard is I thought he flashed a little bit, and he's maybe, what you're getting with Asante, what you're getting with Austin Keys. Austin Keys, by the way, I think is a little bit forgotten about because he injured that hand early last year, missed some games, came back, had the cast on. I still think he can be really good. He's got all the tools. And so a fully healthy Keys and a fully healthy Asante is a pretty damn good duo. But where's the depth? How quickly is Riddick going to contribute? How quickly is DJ Barber going to contribute? Wesley Steiner, I don't know. I mean, I think it's like the boats. I think the ship sailed with him. But Woodyard's maybe that guy. Is he going to step up or not? He could be a massive part. And Dorian Mousey, of course, has played a bunch of football and seems like a pretty good player. Woodyard seems like a big-time X factor with that group. I thought he showed some good things. If the light can finally come on with him, which the thing I heard last year with Woodyard was talent's there, but he felt like his head was just still swimming in terms of how to play the position, learning the defense, whatever. Is this defense easier for him to learn? Does he feel more comfortable in this defense? I don't know. We hear a lot about freedom and attacking and just letting him play and what Durkin does. Does that help Robert Woodyard out? I don't know, but he seems like a big X factor. Alan, what are your thoughts on this group? Not just A-Day, but spring in general, coming out of spring. where do you think this group is at? Concerns, questions, positives?
No, well, I think who that fourth linebacker is a valid question, Justin. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. From my intel, as far as what I've been able to get, the coaching staff has liked what they've seen from Dorian Mausi. Like I think they hit on that one. So they think they've got 3 that they can roll through, but who's the 4th guy?
Yeah.
And how much do you believe, in that young man from Williamson? Because that's the tale. If you think that he can be the guy, the 4th linebacker moving into next year, then maybe you don't necessarily need to go into the portal. If you don't, and only the coaching staff really knows that. DJ Durkin's coaching that room. He's also the defensive coordinator. He knows what he needs. And so if it doesn't look like they're poking around for a linebacker, then I think you have to feel pretty good that they think he's going to be able to take that step moving forward, and or one of the young guys, whether it's
one
of your 2 freshmen. I have not heard, I'm going to be honest with you, and I haven't inquired about Wesley Steiner at all. I don't know what he's done this spring. So it would be unfair of me to critique him, but I would tell you that he's had all the physical talent in the world, and it just hasn't translated on the field. His eyes are always, it seems like the game has just moved a little fast for him. His eyes are not necessarily, or he's overrun plays or what have you. Great kid, great in the locker room. I would want this kid on my team just because of the value he adds in the locker room. He's not going to be an issue, and not everybody can be a superstar, right? So there are some guys that just come to Auburn, they graduate, they're good locker room guys, they move on in their lives, and they do wonderful things. Maybe this is Steiner's year, maybe it's not, I don't know. But there's nothing to this point that would make you believe that he's going to absolutely break out right now, or at least I haven't heard anything anyway. So again, how much do you get out of that 4th linebacker position? I think that's kind of what's going to tell you what's going to happen moving forward. And again, you're right, Justin. If you have some injuries, can you count on what you have back there? Or are you putting in inexperienced guys that are really going to get you beat if you're put into a position where they're just not ready to contribute right now? Cole?
Well, this question from BK here is perfect for what I was going to say, which is I think it's clear cut that obviously we know who the top guys are. It's Keys, Asante, Mausi. That's your 3 guys there. And I think they're pretty solidified. I don't think anybody's knocking them out of that spot.
Yeah.
But the clear cut number 2s to me are because Josh Aldridge said to us one time, and he's not in charge of the linebackers, the inside backers anymore, but he did say to us, ideally you want 4 to 5 guys rotating, and Auburn has not done that. He's like, I'm watching the film from past years. They had 2 guys playing every snap. And that's not, I don't think Durkin's that way either. I think he wants to have a couple more guys. So the clear-cut number 2s are Woodyard and Barber to me, easily. I don't think Riddick's quite there yet. I think when he finally hits, what he's capable of, which that could happen in fall now that he's gone through spring, you never know. Barber, though, he's natural, man. We've been saying that forever, Alan. Love him. Just love he just knows what's up. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't look like a freshman in his read and react ability. The goal line stand by the defense, I think it was in the second quarter. Kinsley Faustin makes the play on Rivaldo Fairweather to complete the stand, but the first 2 plays were a quick trigger play by DJ Barber, just getting in the backfield, making a play. Dude, I love DJ Barber. Love the way he looked. Again, it's his mind. His mind is already there, and that's what I thought he could be in college, and quick. So if they – I don't know how ready he is to play in big-time SEC football,
Better be ready. I mean, right? Like, that's the thing.
He needs to be. I think he's got a chance to contribute is what I'm saying.
I'm just terrified not literally terrified, but if Keys or Asante get hurt and miss time, just one of those guys.
Yeah, and it's a tough position to be in, but you do have the delicate balance. If you continue to recruit over some of these kids, you run the risk of them also entering the portal. So you have to balance development with needing to win right now. And so that's the tough part about being a coach. I mean, it really is right now, is making a determination is, do we jeopardize the future with this kid, or do we develop him now and maybe put him on the field early do we have that kind of grace from our fan base and our donor base to give us time with this? Can we be transparent enough to say, hey, we're going to play some young kids? Because I think
the answer to that is. What do you think the answer to that is?
I think with the fan base, that's a hell no. I think maybe people that are, your donor base is a little bit different. I think that's what the rubber chicken circuit's for in the offseason, right? For Hugh Freeze to communicate his message to some of those people of, hey, continue to be patient with me because we're going to play young kids. They're talented, but they're going to make mistakes. So how he does with his messaging this offseason, if that's what they choose to do, will be important. And I do think it's a delicate balance of figuring out development versus transfer portal here. But I'm with you, Cole. I think with his mind, that young man plays the game so quickly. He sees things inside the box that happen at lightning speed that you just don't necessarily see from a freshman. And he kind of reminds you of Deshaun Davis somewhat from that standpoint.
Definitely.
That's what I see from him, except he's doing it even at a younger age than Deshaun. Deshaun he had a redshirt year where he didn't look good. And then it was that next season before he really kind of came on underneath Travis Williams' tutelage. So I'll be interested to see how they attack that one. I don't see it as like I got to have out of the transfer portal. If I could get it, sure. But I don't know that I'm going to put premium NIL resources into it where I think that money would be better suited elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And I think I like it worries me, but you got to take it all in totality. I would love one more veteran linebacker.
Yeah,
but it's fine if they don't go the direction. I think you make a good point, and that is you could take a veteran linebacker, let's say in the portal, and that's fine. He'll come and go in a year, right? Like say, like I'm going to go get a senior. He'll come and go in a year. He won't mess with Riddick or Barber, but he would mess with them this year potentially. Mm-hmm. And that's a fair point. Like it's just part of this game where now you're balancing and going, okay, I would love one more veteran. But if I do, I will stunt the growth a little bit, most likely, of, let's say, a Barber or a Riddick, because the point of bringing that guy in is so he plays.
Right.
And so I'm going to stunt the growth a little bit. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to roll the dice that Keys and Asante stay healthy, and these guys play backup roles. Obviously, I'll lose out if one of those guys gets hurt, and now all of a sudden Barber or Riddick are playing a bunch. Well, then – but you can't predict the future in that regard. So it's a good example of the added element of what you have to think about when you're talking about portaling and developing the freshmen that you have, because you had a great freshman class. I still think the roster is at least a year away. This team's at least a year away.
Oh, for sure.
But this year's a huge development year, and every guy you bring in to Band-Aid this year stunts potentially the growth of this freshman being as good as that dude. Like Barber's ceiling's higher than a portal guy you're going to bring in, but the portal guy is going to be a better Band-Aid potentially this year. So what do you do?
Right.
Fair question.
So,
it is.
Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
No, you're good, Cole. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tie in with our linebacker talk here. We got a couple things on the board.
Yeah.
We answered Robert Dale's question on the board. He wanted to know the two deep with the backers there, and I think we pretty much covered that. And then Gorgeous Borges said, just talk about Woodyard, big dog. That's what I want to hear about. So we talked about him. And I had a conversation with Robert after the game when we went back to the complex waiting on recruits. He walked through. I said, I stopped him. I was like, hey, man, talk to me about the play out there on the pitch. You know the play I'm talking about. He ran down the pitch play there, and he said, did it look good? I was like, yeah. He goes, I got that expletive, didn't I? So that was good. He was excited, dude. He was I've never really talked to him much, even when he was a recruit. He was committed to Alabama the entire way. He flipped on signing day, so he didn't talk to us. He didn't interview. Respectfully, we talked to him off the record, of course, but he was like, I don't want to put anything out there. So that was really the first time I talked to him, and I've never heard him speak, but he was super excited about how he played. I even heard someone else talking about it, that he's had a great spring. So it looked like it. It looked like he's been playing better. He's an outside guy now. He's not inside anymore. So that's changed for him.
It looks great, dude. Good. Go look at the photo gallery. I'm pretty sure there's a few in there from Matt, but go look at the A-Day photo gallery, and I think Matt got some shots of him, but he looks the part.
Yeah.
I agree. And if you go back to his high school tape, his senior year, he was beat up. I mean, he had an injury. What was it called? Was it an ACL tear?
Yeah. He actually, I think it hampered his recruitment a little bit too. when he had it was a bad one, pretty bad one, close to the end of the year, I believe. So he was dealing with that. He got up to like 245 at one point.
Yeah, but
He
he's got
like
his
215 right now. So
right. I mean, he looks like a will linebacker right now. I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they list him at 6 foot 223 on the website.
yeah,
I think that's fair. I think that's
Probably
fair given what I saw on TV. But no, if you watched his high school highlights, like his junior tape, he absolutely played will linebacker in high school. He's a perfect hybrid, new age type that can play in coverage as well as he can play in the box. So can he continue to come on? That's the big thing. And can Auburn win enough? I mean, that's the biggest thing. If you have, I think that's what you have to weigh as a coaching staff. If we have some health issues, can these guys play well enough that we can continue to win? Because there is a standard. Like, you have to win enough for NIL money to continue to come in. I mean, it's a scoreboard business at the end of the day. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you're not showing progression on the field, who's able to give you certain resources, they may not be willing to necessarily continue to give those. So you have to it's a gamble, but you have to find that delicate balance to be able to win enough and also develop at the same time. And I would not want to be a college football coach right now. I just wouldn't. It's a really tough business.
No. Justin, do you want to hit on another position? Maybe get some.
Yeah, about to go to the secondary. Unless y'all got any more parting shots on the linebacker.
No, that was it. We got a lot of newcomer questions. We can get to that at some point, but we can move to secondary.
DBs, I think we talked about it. Look, I think plenty deep in terms of talent and potential. A bunch of dudes who look the part. Not a ton of experience outside of Keontae, Kay, and Lee. Caleb Wooden's played a decent bit. Of course, Jaron Thompson's played a lot coming from Texas. But a lot of those young guys, man, Tyler Scott, J.C. Hart, Colton Hood, Champ Anthony, Laquan Robinson. I'm missing some, but a bunch of guys who got ability, but haven't played a bunch of big game experience. I think they're in a pretty good spot overall. One of the things that I'm sort of thinking about is we know what we got with Kay and Lee. We know what we got with Keontae Scott. Sort of who's the third corner? Who's the next guy? If Keontae plays nickel, who's opposite of Kay and Lee? Mm-hmm. If Keontae plays outside opposite Kay and Lee, who's the nickel? Who's maybe the third best corner? Is it Champ Anthony? Is it Colton Hood? Laquan Robinson played a good bit at safety. Sylvester Smith at safety. J.C. Hart, my gosh, Hugh Freeze is talking about how he's got an incredibly high ceiling. And Cole and I were sitting up there. He looks the part. Long arms, like big guy. Jaron Thompson, huge pickup, right? Defensive MVP of the A-Day game. Looks like he'll start safety next to, we're not sure yet. Maybe it's Caleb Wooden. Maybe, I don't know. Sylvester Smith was out there with the ones too. So I'm not sure who. I don't know what the other safety will be, but I feel like Jaron will be one.
I think Terrence Love was out there with
Terrence
the
Love. Maybe we're still trying to figure that out. Where are we at with DBs? A bunch of talent. I think, Alan, you said it, like probably the deepest position on the team, and it might not even be probably. I mean, it's probably an easy choice of the best position group.
Absolutely. And I think you have to give Zach Etheridge some credit for recruiting some talent back there. Wesley McGriff last year, bringing in guys and developing guys over the last, even going back to the Kevin Steele teams. DB has been Auburn's strong suit for the past 5 or 6 years now, in my honest opinion, as far as recruiting, developing, and scouting. That has been the group that they've done the best job with. And here recently, they've just stacked a lot of young, talented guys. I mean, you talked about Tyler Scott, who's a kid to me that could play corner or nickel. I honestly believe in my heart of hearts he's a tailor-made nickel. Like, the way as aggressive as he is, I think
he was in the slot, Alan, a little bit in the game. Now, I don't know if he was actually playing nickel, but he was in the slot. I didn't notice that. So that's good. That's a good move because I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah, I think he is tailor-made for that spot, Cole. And you and I talked about that when he was in high school. When you saw some of the highlights of him coming up and absolutely just destroying wide receivers on screens and things like that.
Yeah,
you thought that physicality translated well to that inside nickel spot. But I mean, a kid like Colton Hood, I think has all the ball skills in the world. I really believe he's going to be your third corner at the end of the day. I think he's kind of started to separate himself and just has those natural skills. J.C. Hart, whenever he finds whatever his home is going to be, whether it's going to be corner, whether it's going to be nickel, whether it's going to be safety, I think he's a safety. I really do. And that kind of speed on the back end with his frame and mindset, I think he's going to be something special when he settles in there. But Cole hit it. I think we talked about this privately, but he's got the kind of body with those long arms and hips that if he can hit it corner, I mean, he's an NFL first round type kid, especially with that kind of speed. And that's, I mean, we're not even talking about our starters in Keontae Scott, who's a guy who's played a ton of snaps in the SEC. Now, most of those have been on the inside, but how does he continue to grow and develop on the outside? You know, and then probably the smallest defensive back, I would think. I mean, he's not like maybe the shortest defensive back. Let me put it like that. Not the smallest because he's relatively thick, but who am I thinking of here?
Champ Anthony?
No, not Champ. This is bad podcasting on my part.
A cornerback?
Yeah. K and Lee.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. K and 5'11" one.
Who I think is absolutely special. I mean, as far as being able to play the ball in phase, flip his hips. I mean, he's got the entire package, you know, so they have a really, really good young nucleus. I mean, I think they hit home runs, not this past. I mean, I think they did well in this class, but that prior class, whew.
Yeah, Free said he thinks they hit on all these. I mean, he basically said, I think we hit on all these freshmen that are coming in. Caleb Harris, Kinsley Faustin, whatever. He's like, I think we hit on all those guys. Yeah. By the way, feel bad for Jay Crawford. He got on the bad end of both of Cam Coleman's big plays. Like, Cam Coleman's just really good. Jay Crawford's like,
but look, Jay was in good position.
Yes.
Not bad. Not bad. Yeah, he got run by on the seam. He was fine.
Besides
on the other, he got to find the ball, but not bad position. Yeah.
Well, that play, and I wanted to talk about that play a little bit. If you're the corner there, and this makes total sense that he wasn't able to do this, you cut Cam Coleman off from getting to the hash. That was the aiming point. If you can stop him from getting to that hash by putting hands on him, knocking him off that route, the timing's off. That play's over. It's not going to happen. First of all, number one, that's Cam Coleman overpowering his way to the hash is where he's trying to go, his aiming point. That right there is such a huge difference on the offense. On the defensive side, once you don't cut that guy off, it's over.
Yeah,
you're done. You're done. I don't care if it's, Patrick Peterson covering him. You got to cut him off. So he's learning, man. That was a great learning experience for him. And then he's in good position on some of these other plays, just didn't turn around and play the ball.
Yeah.
And that was something that I saw from all the corners and DBs that were in these single man matchups. Got to play the ball, guys. Kay and Lee did a good job of it on his test where it was thrown on him in the end zone, knocked it away. But the good news is nobody's getting burnt out there.
No.
They're in good position, and that's always number one. So you're in phase one of that right now. You got to remember, and this is what we talked about, when you're talking about experience being a problem, people go, that's cliche. Y'all say that all the time. We're talented. Who cares? Nope. That's the difference. That's the difference. In Cam Coleman's touchdown, that's the difference. Because corner's in good position, needs to make that play. But he doesn't have the experience yet. He's learning how to do that. That's going to be the problem with Auburn secondary this year. But, boy, that is an exciting group all the way through.
No, I agree. And you didn't see him turning guys loose. That's the big thing. To me, other than Cam Coleman on that seam route, and I think Jay thought he had safety help over the top. I think he thought he had it down the seam. But you didn't see a lot of that when they were passing guys off, playing match coverage. You didn't see a lot of busts or miscommunications or things like that. And that is such a huge – I mean, match coverage is very difficult to play, and especially with young guys. And so you didn't see them just turning a whole bunch of guys loose and not having guys in position to even make plays. Because I'm with you, Cole. That's the thing. Guys were there to make plays. They just didn't execute. Yeah,
that's right.
And some of the back shoulder stuff is so hard to get your head turned around on, man. I mean, if the quarterback and the wide receiver are in sync, that's really difficult. But give Cam Coleman credit, man. And we talked about this, and Justin, I know you hit this like all fall last year, but how many times did wide receivers go up and make plays in one-on-ones last fall and then look at the spring game? And that was a takeaway you can get from that. whether it was Robert Lewis, Camden Brown, Cam Coleman specifically making plays in one-on-ones. They did it, man. I mean, and they stretched the catch radius and made it to where the quarterbacks didn't have to make a perfect throw.
And we'll go to receivers after this. I think that's a good pivot point. One guy I didn't mention was Antonio Kite. He had a pass breakup in the game. He's the guy that we heard good things about in the spring. Looks great. Like, to me, looks the part.
How is he the guy, Justin? How is he the guy that never gets mentioned? And it's not just us. I don't hear a lot about guys. This guy flipped from Bama. That should be the most popular guy on the team, right?
Yeah, and I guess it was a couple weeks ago. I wrote, I don't know, Wesley McGriff or somebody. I wrote a story about him. I think it was from Wesley McGriff quotes or something. But in some of the practices we saw, he was lined up. There were definitely practices we went out there and saw, and he was first team opposite Kay and Lee at some points of what we saw. I don't know where he'll end up right now, but like, I think he's a guy to watch out for that I think can be really good and help them out. And like I said, he had a pass breakup in that game. Kay and Lee had a breakup. JC Hart had a pass breakup. Jay Crawford had a breakup, and Colton Hood had a break. So they had 6 pass breakups in that game. Of course, they threw the ball. How many times they threw the ball? 49 times. I wanted to mention Kite.
Before we move on, Justin, from the board, they want to know about Keontae Scott and why it's been sort of quiet with him.
That's thank you for saying that, because when y'all were talking in my head, I wanted to go back to him real quick, because I think in the spring we love to talk about the potential and the X factors and all that. And we overlook somebody like Keldrick Falk, right? Like, well, if he'll just take the step forward. Keontae, they tried him on the outside in the bowl game, didn't work. Like, let's just be honest, he got roasted a couple times. I don't know if he'll stay there. I mean, he was there in the A-Day. I don't know if he'll move back to the nickel. I still am a little bit jury's out on that. Keontae's an awesome player. I don't know that I love him on the outside versus the nickel, but that's not my call to make.
Sure.
Part of the reason, by the way, just so for that question, in the spring, man, we write about like people we get, just to be fair. If we got Keontae at the very end of spring, and just to be honest with you, he didn't say a lot. Like, I would have loved to have written a really good Keontae story, but he just didn't have a lot to say.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a proven commodity. And so the spring, we just end up asking about the freshman and the newcomer and this guy. And so part of what gets written about in the spring is on us. Like, we only have a limited amount of time, what we can ask, who we want to ask about, who we get access to. So there's times where guys aren't written about, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing good or bad. But I think with Keontae Allen, like, is he a lockdown outside guy, or does he need to be in the nickel? I think he had a breakup, or he had a good play on the outside. But are you fine with him opposite Kay and Lee out there?
I haven't seen enough to really say that I feel comfortable with him on the outside. I know what he is as far as a nickel is concerned, and I think he's one of the best in the SEC. And so it's just hard, Justin. You're right. That Maryland game was not a good performance. But how much of that was him adjusting to playing back on the outside? Maybe some unassuredness of, what Rom Roberts' future was. There were all kind of rumors going on at that point. Yeah. What was going to happen with Wes McGriff? I mean,
true.
I put very little about what happened in Nashville as far as what potential is moving forward.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was ugly. But I just don't know. It's hard for me to say, yes, I feel 100% comfortable about Keontae Scott on the outside, because I just haven't seen enough of it to say. I thought his junior college tape, he played really well on the outside. But from what I've seen of him so far, I think he is a prototype new age nickel, and his physicality really translates inside. I love him at that spot, but we'll just have to wait and see. If he's, here in the fall, I think the coaching staff is committed to giving him that opportunity. I think they sold him on that. As far as coming back to Auburn, not turning pro, not necessarily hitting the transfer portal. So keeping their word is a big part of that. And so I think he's going to get that shot, but how does it go? Do they move him back inside if they really think he's better suited there? It would be interesting to see. But what about you guys? How do you feel?
And let me pose this question to either one of you. The other part of Keontae is, Keontae was fantastic blitzing off the edge. He could get to the quarterback. He did all that. I don't know if is that a big part of what Durkin's going to blitz? Is it going to be the nickel blitzing a bunch? Do you miss that aspect? If Keontae's on the outside, do you miss that guy that's in the nickel that can creep up and blitz, or is Durkin not going to blitz the nickel as much, and it'll be more linebacker blitzing? I don't know. Just something to think about.
I think from what I can tell, Justin, and watching Durkin's A&M defense, he likes to have a linebacker play in the box, period. Whereas Ron Roberts, I think, like to have a nickel like Keontae or Caleb Wooden come in and be there to make plays in the box a lot. It seems like the nickel's going to be more of a space guy instead of playing up near the line of scrimmage, to me. And they move the edges around a good bit. They do some interesting things. Now, they didn't show all that. I've seen that at practice, just to be honest with you. So I think that's really defense. It's not like it used to be where you talk about, oh, they run a 4-3 or they run a 3-4 or a 4-2-5. Don't worry about all that. Get that out of your vocabulary if you're watching this right now. It's about personnel now. That's what it's about. Would you rather have a nickel come up and blitz, or would you rather have a do-it-all linebacker be in the box? And to me, Durkin prefers the bigger guy to be in the box. That's what it seems like.
He does. He absolutely prefers a bigger guy to be in the box. Now, he still plays with a support star to the opposite side. And I did see some things from his A&M tape where he mixed fronts like you talked about, and also mixed blitzes from various angles. And it did come from differing positions. So I think he probably will bring some from the nickel. I don't know how much of a pure corner blitz he brought, but that's in everybody's bag. Like, it feels like every defensive coordinator has a corner blitz, specifically, you know what I mean, when the play is being rolled to the other side, it feels like. So I'll be interested, man. I don't think we saw everything that DJ Durkin is going to do in the A-Day game.
Oh,
I mean, he's got a hybrid system that's cut from Will Muschamp. He kind of cut his teeth underneath him at Florida. He's also, I think he was underneath Charlie Strong during the Urban Meyer era at Florida as well. So he's got some odd front there with him. I think Will's
saying we got a Boom Junior.
Not necessarily a Boom Junior, or at least I hope some of the words that come off the sideline might not necessarily be Boom-esque. We'll see.
Broken white boy.
Yeah, boy.
But no, he cut his teeth underneath him. Charlie Strong, obviously he's coached underneath Jim Harbaugh, who loves odd man front, but he mixes things really well. He mixes his blitzes really well, plays a lot of aggressive man coverage, and he'll mix off man with press, with match and everything else in between. But I just want to see one or two games to get a real feel for how they're going to call things. Like, that's the tough part about when you transition coordinators, is not necessarily, you can't judge about what they do in the spring, because when they start to specifically game plan, you'll see what's really in their bag and what they feel comfortable with. And you're right, Cole, it is personnel, because coordinators now, they adjust everything to what they've got. I mean, and if you're archaic and you just say, hey, my system is my system, you're going to have a Mike Leach type year like at Mississippi State, where they won 3 games and then had to continuously recruit into that system to get to the point just where you could win 8 games.
Well,
so
I don't want to harp on that too much. You know, it gets real technical, but basically in today's college football, you can't go out there without 5 DBs. You go ahead and try, you're going to get torched.
Yep.
You got to have 5 DBs on the field in some way or form. If you think this is a running down, the question is, do you have a linebacker hybrid type guy that can stay out there and hold his own if he were in coverage? Robert Woodyard, I think, is that guy. That's the role he's playing now, and that's why he looks better, I think. Or do you have a nickel who can play in the box and handle the run if it comes at him? That's the question that defense coordinators are asking now. But again, I don't want to get too far into that because it gets technical. But Justin, that's all I had on DBs from the board. I don't see anything else there.
All right, let's roll to the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk receivers real quick. Let's talk receivers real quick on Durkin. I just want to make this point because I told somebody the other day, and since we were sort of talking about Durkin, a bunch of positive comments from players and coaches about him beyond just, like it's been fun to have him, or he's doing a great job. Like, really specific. I mean, I've heard players talk about how he's easy to go talk to about something that's not football related, or he comes in the room and he just says one thing and our energy's up and we're ready to go. Or, believe it or not, it might have even been Keldrick Falk that said it. I can't remember. said he's compassionate. I know some people are going to jump on that, whatever. But like some really specific positive things about him. I think the players and the coaches are loving having him so far, really detail-oriented guy. But I like some of the things the players have said beyond just, yeah, he's a fun guy or a cool guy. Like there have been some specific things said about him that make me think the players have really taken to having him out there, not just as a defensive guy, but like as a coach, the energy he brings, all that stuff. So I think that's worth being said for a guy that's caught a lot of heat over the last however many months.
And I'll double on that. And what was told to me is that DJ Durkin has the unique perspective to be able to criticize the performance and not the performer. And he's able to get his message across to them to where these young men understand he's trying to make them better. And it is the energy that he brings. And combine that with Charles Kelly, who's a proven commodity in the SEC. I think you hit the nail on the head. Those two guys working in concert with each other, DJ Durkin handling the front seven, Charles Kelly trusting him with the back end. You mix in some veterans and young guys with Josh Aldridge, VKW, and then obviously Wes McGriff. And I think you just got a really good group of coaches on the defensive side of the ball, guys that seem to be getting along. And not everybody can step into a room where you already had coaches you didn't pick. And that is unique from DJ Durkin to be able to come in and do that and mesh with these guys, and also a team that he didn't necessarily recruit on the defensive side of the ball. So that's really good to hear from your side, Justin, that's what's going on.
All right, let's talk about receivers. Man, talk about a position that needed to upgrade. Barning Knight says, what's your projected starting pass catchers? Coleman, Lewis, Fairweather, Perry would be a mean 4. I'll give you a couple quick thoughts, and Cole, I'll throw it to you. Cam Coleman, right, we got it. I love what I saw from Robert Lewis. I think one of the questions I had with him is, does he have the top end speed? I thought he showed a little bit of that. What we heard in the spring from Robert Lewis was he's a sponge. He picks things up in a heartbeat. We heard, I can't remember if it was a player or a coach that talked about him, but I think it was Marcus Davis said, like, you tell him something once. I think it was Marcus Davis that told Robert Lewis, you tell him something once, he gets it. And then he's coaching the other receivers on it. So I love to hear that about Robert Lewis. And then I saw him make some plays. That's a guy, big X factor for me. And Freeze said afterwards, he's a guy that's going to be counted on. And Camden Brown, I think he's a role guy. I did like to see him make a couple plays, including coming back to the football. Multiple guys I saw come back to the football.
Yeah,
that
right.
sounds. It's funny that I'm excited about that. It just, to me, it shows instincts that I didn't see last year. Like, come back to the football. It's an instinctual play that's not always there. I saw a little bit of that from the receivers. That gives me hope for the entire position group. But you know what you're getting with Cam. Sam Jackson, I think, is lightning in a bottle. I just don't know exactly what his role is. But, man, get him the football. But, Cole, what are your thoughts coming out of spring on that position? Outside of – I mean, you can talk about Cam if you want, but I think we sort of know he's going to start. He's a baller. But what's your position? What's your thought on that group? And like, can Perry Thompson, what are also realistic expectations for Perry and Malcolm coming in the summer? I mean, they game one. Do you think they're going to be out there a big part, or they're going to need some time? What's your thoughts on those guys too?
I think right now, the way it's set up right now, yes, Perry Thompson's going to be out there early. Malcolm Simmons probably going to be out there early. The way it's set up right now, and no shot at them, but that's what has me concerned a little bit, because I don't see. It's kind of like the D-line. I besides Cam Coleman, now he's dominant. He can be dominant, but I'm a little bit worried about the hype. The hype is scaring me a little bit.
Height, yeah. I thought you said hype.
I get it. Look, hype him up. Have fun with it. That's the kind of player Auburn's needed for so many reasons. Perceptionally, it's huge. It does a lot for recruiting. What he did on A-Day, believe it or not. I mean, recruits that aren't even affiliated with the offense, we're talking about it, okay? It's creating buzz in a good way, but I know I'm not telling anybody to tone it down, but it scares me, okay? I know how this thing works. And the minute that he drops the ball, or the minute that something happens in a game that he's not invincible. Things are going to happen. He's a freshman. He's still got to learn. He's still got to get some things fixed. So I don't know if he's just going to be this guy that's going to be number one. He's the guy. We go to him on third downs. We go to him when we're in a tight spot. I don't know yet. I think he can be.
I think he's absolutely going to be that guy.
For 2024, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got to be. I'm not saying he's going to win the political, but
that's what I'm saying. Exactly what I'm saying, Justin.
He's got to be that guy.
If he's got to be that guy, I think you need someone else. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Because I don't want to put too much on him just yet.
I don't want to. It's just like, I just think he's going to end up being the default. I think Peyton is going to be so excited, rightly so, to have that dude that you're just going to end up going to him in critical. So you're going to look to him.
And I think you are. I'm not disagreeing with you there. I think there needs to be someone else, though.
I wholeheartedly agree, Cole. In that, what happens when Cam Coleman starts to get doubled? Does he get frustrated? Do they have other guys that can force them to roll the coverage the other way so he can get matched up in one-on-ones? That's the scary part to me. It's not what his potential is, but when they start to alter how Auburn is played, when Auburn's not being played straight up, and that's what you saw in the spring game. Auburn was playing straight up. They weren't doubling him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when they start to bracket him, how does he adjust to that? And do we have enough playmakers in other spots to make teams pay for that so that they'll relax coverage and go back to playing him head up? That's what you don't know right now. And to me, that's the real scary part of it, is that Hugh Freeze has had success with freshman wide receivers, right? Like, I mean, he's done that. So he knows how to put them in a position to be successful. But do you have enough other people around him to continue to keep him successful? And that's what I don't know.
To this question from Tim Tucker, I was just about to say about Sam Jackson. I didn't see anything from Sam Jackson I haven't already seen. You go back and watch the Cal game against Auburn. He's playing quarterback. I don't care. He looked every bit as electric then as he did for A-Day. My question is what you just said, Alan. If Cam Coleman is taken away by the defense, is Sam Jackson good enough to be able to make a play, to be able to be a go-to guy if your number one guy is taken away? Is Robert Lewis good enough? Is Camden Brown good enough? Jay Fair? I don't know. I don't come away with a clear-cut answer on that. I think Robert Lewis is going to be pretty good. I really like what I'm seeing from him. But even on his Georgia State film, I mean, I wasn't seeing dynamic routes from him there, and maybe that's the offense they ran. I saw him do a little bit more than maybe I did on film at Georgia State in this A-Day game. And when I was going through the analysis live during the game, I was calling them comeback routes. Justin, you pointed out, I don't think they were comeback routes. I think they were hitches, and then they were coming back to the ball.
A couple, for sure, yeah.
Detail. That's what Peyton Thorne said 100 times. Detail seems to be better. I can point out several instances where there was more detail in the little things that the average fan's never going to see, but makes the biggest difference in the world. And that was, I saw a few of those things. Definitely them coming back to the ball. I think that was the number one thing that got me a little excited. Hey, they're starting to do some things to help these quarterbacks out, to help the whole operation of the offense. The operation just looks so much cleaner. And I thought when Peyton Thorne was in the game, there looked like more of an identity. And that's all I'm saying about Peyton Thorne right now. RPO, pretty good there. But the receivers are helping that. I think they're helping that already. But again, I think they need one more guy. That's where I stand on that. I would feel so much better if they had one more guy.
For sure. For sure. They need, Freeze even said, we need to go in the portal and look for another one or two. No question. Perry Thompson coming in, we'll see what kind of impact I'm more hyped on Perry Thompson. Y'all probably watch more film on Malcolm Simmons. Phenomenal athlete. How quickly is he going to evolve into a pure receiver that gets the RPO system? Also, I don't know. Perry's a guy that you can put, to me, you can infuse him in quicker because he's just got physical gifts that you're like, look, I don't know how much he knows, but he's damn big. So there's going to be some times where we just put him out there and we're going to give him a shot. That will get him on the field quicker, and maybe he can develop into somebody that helps balance things with Cam. It's kind of a great thing that we're at least having the conversation of what happens when a team has to worry about an Auburn receiver and maybe
Yeah.
double him?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
welcome conversation, by the way.
But
But it's a very fair, but it's worrisome in a way. I totally get what you're saying. If they go, listen, guys, they got one dude. We're going to roll a safety. Good luck. Who is Robert Lewis? Like, who else? Sam Jackson's not that guy. He's going to have a role. I'm just curious to see what his role is. It maybe some speed sweep. Some different. You saw, I think one of the catches he had was in the slot, and he kind of peeled out, sort of like a bubble, and they swung it to him. Stuff like that might work. So he'll be used in that role. He's not going to be the guy that's like, okay, 3rd and 7, they got Cam, go target Sam Jackson. That will probably be Robert Lewis or maybe Perry Thompson. We didn't see Caleb Burton. He didn't play. I am, to be honest, with Robert Lewis coming in and Malcolm Simmons and Bryce Kane and Sam Jackson, I wonder where Jay Fair and Caleb Burton fit in exactly.
I'm with you, because to me, and I will say this about Sam Jackson, I think he's going to be best on this roster as the number 4 wide receiver. Like, I think if he's your 4th guy, you're feeling really good about it.
Yeah.
And so if whether it's Perry Thompson or whether it's another transfer that slides in there as your number 3 or your number 2 guy. And I want to pose a question to you, Justin, because we talked about this on the call-in show, and I think this is because of the time that he's coming in. Seth Williams, his freshman year, I think it was 25 or 26 catches, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. Do you think you can get that kind of a performance from Perry Thompson? Like, is that in his bag as a freshman, or do you think it's less? And if it's less, then to me, you absolutely need to go get another guy, because I think Hugh Freeze's offense is best when you have a series of receivers, 2, 3, 4 guys that are going for between 500 and 800 yards apiece. That's kind of how he's done it. I can only remember a handful of guys where they've gone over 1,000. Maybe it's only 2 in Moncrief and who's the kid, Laquan Treadwell. I think both of those guys went over 1,000. The rest of them were fluctuated in that range of 500 to 700 yards. So by committee, does Auburn have enough? And that will just, to me, I'm with Cole. I think you need to transfer, but what do you think is really capable from Perry? Do you think he's able to put up that kind of yardage? And if he's not, what do you think he can produce?
I mean, to me, Perry's every bit as talented as Seth Williams was coming in 2018. I mean, Seth Williams is good. Seth Williams had great ball skills, but I think Perry's every bit as talented and is bigger.
Yeah.
Seth sort of turned into that. That offense was, I don't know. It's different, obviously. So you sort of, it was a lot of back shoulders and one-on-ones to Seth Williams and stuff like that. And so you obviously had Darius Slayton, and then you had Ryan Davis, who caught 70 passes that year.
Right.
I think Perry's probably the X factor, a massive X factor in the offense. I mean, the quicker he develops, the quicker you have a bona fide physical guy that, despite being a freshman, there's going to be veteran corners in the SEC that will have a hard time dealing with him and getting around him and boxing. He'll be able to box some guys out. So I think his development is massive to Cam Coleman, massive to Robert Lewis, and that whole passing cat. I don't know. I mean, you just don't know with some of these guys. Like, my other thing is coming in the summer. Like, how quickly do you learn this? Get the summer, learn the offense is one thing, but in this RPO, it's reading the defense. It's a whole nother thing. It's not just learning the offense. It's understanding when to apply it and what you're seeing, and then making sure you're on the same page. It's a whole nother element that you got to pick up quickly. That's not easy. So I don't know. I feel better about the receivers. What I'm curious about is who do they get in the portal? Like, what does that look like? Is that a senior? Like, is that another Robert Lewis type guy that you're like, this dude's played football?
Hey,
he's going to immediate, or is it like just the best? If it's a sophomore that you need, I mean, we're talking about getting a guy that's going to compete this fall, right? Like, he is going to help. We're not talking about going to get a portal dude who's like a sophomore.
Yeah, if you get another Robert Lewis, I feel a lot better. Or at least what he potentially looks like. because I mean, we didn't even
You
hear
want a big
about
guy,
it.
small guy. Does it matter?
Oh, I don't care. Just productive. Just productive. Just somebody who can go out there and be a target. Somebody who can make some plays here and there. Josh Corbett asks, can Rivaldo take pressure off of Cam Coleman as maybe a more of a receiver? And I think yes. I think the answer to that is yes, because I don't think we saw how they're going to use him in this game. He's not just going to be the shoot route guy. He's not going to be the out in the flats guy. They're going to stretch the field with him too. So that is a huge factor that we didn't see in A-Day that's going to be there. We feel pretty certain, right?
Definitely. I mean, I think Rivaldo Fairweather is a guy. He caught for over 400 yards this past year.
Yeah.
I think you could at least expect that level of production, if not more. I mean,
38 for 394 and 6 touchdowns. The 38 was a tight end record. The 6 was one short of Lutz's tight end record, and then he had 394 yards.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think he could go north of 450 this year. I don't think there's anybody that would. And if he makes a couple catches that hits him in the hands this past year, specifically that one in the Bama game, he's up over that already.
Yep. So that's part of it too. So yeah, there's a couple things there that make you think if Cam Coleman were taken out of the game somehow, can Auburn still move the football with the passing game? I think there's enough to get it done, but I still think there's upgrade to be had there, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and by the way, just quickly looking at that, Rivaldo was number one in terms of yards last year, but the next 4 guys in terms of catches that totaled, I think 86 catches was Javaris Johnson, Jay Fair, Caleb Burton, Shane Hooks. Johnson gone, Hooks gone, Burton didn't play. Fair, but you insert Robert Lewis, insert Cam Coleman. Like it's just going to look completely different this year. Rivaldo will be there, but everybody else in terms of pass catchers will be very, very different. So we'll see what they do with the portal. Love what we got with Cam Coleman. The kid's awesome. Like what we see with Robert Lewis.
What do you think? What do you think right here with the outlook with Micah Riley? That's an interesting question.
Okay, yeah, let's move to tight ends. I actually love that question. Micah Riley, I am a huge fan.
Yeah.
Huge fan. I think that dude has got the right mindset. He's aggressive. I think he wants to hammer you on the football field. I think he's a good blocker. And then I saw him make a couple catches, not just in the game. He had a catch in the game, didn't he? Yeah, he had one catch for you. He made a catch in the practice portion of it because I think I turned to you where it was like a seam. It might have been a seam route in the practice portion, but he one-handed it. He made I don't know if that was on TV, the practice portion before the scrimmage, but in the 7-on-7 work, Micah Riley had a one-handed snag down the seam, reach out, snag it, come in. I love the potential. Rivaldo's going to be Rivaldo. He's got skills, and he's going to be obviously a big-time pass catcher. And Luke Deal will block, and Frazier, we'll see. Riley's the guy that I love that I think could make a few grabs this year. I think him and Fairweather are different, and they could be used completely different in terms of the tight end. Like I don't know that Riley will necessarily get the same stuff that Fairweather does or vice versa, but I freaking love the potential of Micah Riley, and I love the potential of Rico Walker. People sort of got their first look at him. That dude looks great in practice, looks the part, young, but the potential of Riley and Walker, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of both those guys.
Yeah, you almost forget about those guys because of what's in front of them and the experience with Luke Deal, Brandon Frazier, of course, Fairweather, but looking good there all the way through that position. I will say, and this is not a shot at Micah Riley at all. This is more of a testament to Dorian Mausi. And one of the plays I've broken down so far in the first quarter, boy, Dorian Mausi put the hammer down on him.
He sure did, dude. He sure did.
He put him on his back, and I was like, wow, Micah ain't no slouch.
No, he's not.
I mean, that's one of those plays where you're like, okay, that's not a representative of what you are, Micah. Like, that's not you. You're usually the guy, bringing the heat. But Mausi smoked him. I was like, man, good for you.
And that was something both you and I had questions about Mausi with his physicality coming over from Duke.
Exactly.
And you see that, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I see what they saw on tape now. So But I'm
Hey,
with you. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I love the mid-skill talent, the tight end, the composition of the tight end room. You've got veteran leadership with Luke Deal, Brandon Frazier, Rivaldo Fairweather, two really good, young, emerging developmental prospects, Enrico Walker, Micah Riley, because he's dropped the Ducker now, right? It's just Micah Riley.
Yes, but he has a chain that says Duck. So
okay, all right. Look, man, I'll call you whatever you want, brother. We're good.
Hanging on to that, but yes, technically it's Micah Riley.
There you go, Micah Riley.
So this sort of pertains to what we're talking about. Our guy T Dubham on the board, he says throw Cam Coleman out, throw him out.
Yep.
We're not talking about Cam here. Who was the newcomer that caught your eye in the A-Day game? Or maybe just for us, Justin being at practice, who's that newcomer that needs to be talked about a little bit more like Cam's being talked about? Well, I guess let's base it on the A-Day game since we're.
Oh boy, like Cam's being talked about. I don't think I
not necessarily that level.
Yeah. A newcomer.
T Dubham, he did give an answer to his own question.
What did he say?
He said Amaris Williams is who it is for him.
Yeah, you watched more defense in practice. When we go to practice, we sort of split up. I watch offense, Cole watches defense, just so we can try to watch more. So I didn't watch a ton of them in practice, but every time that position was talked about, Freeze was like, and Amaris Williams and Jamonte Waller are going to have to play well, and Amaris Williams and Jamonte Waller are going to have to live up to the billing. Man, I'm trying to think of a newcomer. I don't know, Jaron Thompson. Maybe toss him in there as a guy that I think has been as good as advertised.
I would say Caleb Harris.
Yeah,
that's the guy. Him and DJ Barber, I think, are just advanced football IQ players for where they're at right now, age-wise. They know how to play football. They understand it. They have instinct. And it doesn't matter if they don't know the playbook or they don't know exactly where they're supposed to be all the time. They just end up there because they know how to play football. Caleb Harris has always looked like that. I don't care what his ranking was in high school. That dude, and he played for Thompson High School. It doesn't get better than that. He just makes play after play after play, and that is so far translating to this level in just a few practices in a game. I mean, I'm just blown away by him. I really am.
So you talked about DJ Durkin's scheme before and how he likes an outside linebacker in that kind of that nickel role sometimes. To me, that's what Caleb Harris will be in the future. They're playing him in the back end right now. They're probably trying to get him comfortable at one position, but I absolutely believe he's going to play closer to the line of scrimmage at some point in his career, and that he's going to play 215 pounds, 210 pounds plus before it's all said and done. He's a big kid. And I absolutely believe he can be that hybrid type guy that can come down into the box, make plays, and still be able to give you plus in pass coverage. So I'm with you. Instinctually speaking, when you watch his high school tape, you see it. I mean, he plays the ball well in the air. The intuitive part of it and being able to read things before they happen, you see it with him. And so it's one of those innate things that some kids have and some kids don't. And he's been well coached and it just sees that part of the game really well, processes things very well. So I'm with you. I also like what I've seen from Kinsley Faustin. I think he's not talked about enough. Yeah. I honestly do.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a guy that we go through so many interviews, but there was a player or a coach, I remember specifically naming him within the last 2 weeks as a guy who is played really well and made some plays, made a number of plays out there. So he's a guy that I'd have to go back and look, but he has been mentioned by I think it was another player as doing some good things. Kinsley Faustin has.
Yep.
All right, before we move on, I think the big question with tight ends really centers around Fairweather. So one of the things that Ben Aguamaya talked about was he needs to get better blocking in the box. He needs to become more consistent catching the ball. He had 6 drops last year. And then in the big key moments, he has to make the catch. 3rd down, goal line fade, whatever. In the big moment, if they go to him, he has to make the play. I think he had a drop or 2 in the Alabama game. He had a big one in that game, I think across the middle somewhere. I don't exactly remember the play or the ball, but it was in his vicinity. but Fairweather is still the bell cow of that group. Like he has to take a step forward and be a super consistent pass catcher to help the receivers as well. But is that guy going to take? I mean, is he going to take those next steps? How big would that be if he does?
Huge. I mean, I don't think he's far off. You know what I mean? He's right there. I mean, let's just say he connects on those plays you're talking about. That's first rounder, NFL.
Yeah.
Right now, he's probably looking at third or fourth round. Connect on a few more plays like that, you're a first rounder, man.
Yep.
You're every sense of the word what they're looking for in the NFL right now. And that's it goes back to the Cam Coleman thing. He is what can make this offense really tick, because you got to pick one of them. If it's Fairweather that's hurting you, then you start doubling him. Well, now Cam Coleman's free again.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That's what makes – he's the key. I think he's the key of the offense.
Yeah, he's a huge one. All right, let's roll on. Running back, I don't know. We can probably roll past running back. I think, like you said, Cole, you know, they are what they are. Jarquez is good. Damari's good. I'm curious to see Jeremiah Cobb's role because he's so talented, but I'm just not sure. I don't know that Jeremiah Cobb is going to be used that much more than he was last year. You've got two backs that are really good ahead of you. You're going to have, even if it's marginal, you're going to have marginal better talent at receiver. So you should have more options in truly passing the ball where you shouldn't have to rely on, only your running backs. So I'm curious to see sort of Jeremiah Cobb's role, Brian Batty's role. But I think running back's pretty much set. It's going to be Jarquez and Damari for the most part. Jeremiah will get his spot duty. Even somebody like Sam Jackson could take a speed sweep or could take a little bit of away from Jeremiah Cobb. He's probably the most interesting player in that running back room, but I think they kind of are what they are, right?
The only thing I'll add, and Cole, I want to get your input here, is that Robbie Ashford had significant snaps for design runs last year. I think those running plays will now go to running backs. And then I also think Jeremiah Cobb is going to get Brian Batty snaps. And Batty was around, 250, 300 yards rushing last year.
Let's see real quick. You can keep talking. I'll pull it up.
So I think if
227, 51 carries.
If you give those extra 51 carries to Jeremiah Cobb, I think
46 from Ashford.
Right, 46 from Ashford. So, you give those to Jeremiah, or maybe you spread them a little bit to Peyton. I'm not sure. They ran Peyton a lot last year, to be honest, and I don't know how much they want to run him this year, given what you have from a depth standpoint back there right now. Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to have to run him in certain situations. Like, you have to keep the defense honest.
I'd run him.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I'd run him.
I agree. It's a really good part of his game. But to do that, you got to feel comfortable with who his backup is, because just like I do, it's a high collision sport. The more times you get hit, the more injuries you're going to have. So they're going to have to teach him, A, how to get out of bounds, or 2, to get down to make sure that you're mitigating injury. So, but back to the running backs, I do think those carries will help give the running backs a few more opportunities, because I don't think Jeremiah's going to get all those. I think those will also go to Damari, and they'll also go to Jarquez, but they'll probably be more effective running the ball. And I think they're going to hit more. They have more big running plays because the box is going to be lighter. You're going to have a legitimate passing game this year. I feel like some vertical shots down the field. It's going to loosen the box. But Cole, how do you feel?
Well, I think the biggest narrative and the biggest question on everybody's mind is we got to talk portal here, because we have to. There's no way around this. You got the same room as you did a year ago. Don't forget about Sean Jackson. I mean, in any other backfield, he probably contributes a little bit. Not a bad player at all, and I think is technically on scholarship. So, even Ranger 361 on our board, he's like, dude, Brian Batty can make chicken salad out of chicken litter. Whatever. But he's basically saying, is Batty leaving? Because that would bother me. He had a great play in the A-Day game where he made a guy miss down the sideline. And he does that a lot, by the way. You go back and watch a lot of his film as a running back. Don't go look at the return stuff. I think that's not an accurate
Go look at the A&M game with him. Go look at the Georgia game. He made plays.
He absolutely is a playmaker. I don't get into this size thing. I just don't. care that much.
No.
Like, people seem to want to even out a room with size. Like, oh, you got to have a big guy and a small guy. Can they play? That's all I care about. Can they play? And I think Batee can. But does he stay with Auburn? That's the guy everybody's looking at. Like, where's your place?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you fit? And I think that's the question on everybody. And then there's Cobb. What does he do if he doesn't get more carries or something? He even kind of hinted at that when we talked to him, Justin. He said, I think I could have had more touches in year one, but that's on me. Didn't learn the offense fast enough. That was his answer to that question. What is he thinking? Is he thinking portal? Is he thinking, all right, I have a really good role here? That's going to be the question on everybody's mind when it comes to running back.
Yeah, if you took Batee's 51 and Ashford's 46, you're talking about 97 carries. Now, keep in mind, Alston missed 3 games and only ended up with 64 carries. Damari's going to get more than 64 carries if he stays healthy. So he'll gobble up some of those carries. Peyton shouldn't run the ball 134 times. It'll be interesting, but you got better receivers, so hopefully you'll have some games where you can pass the ball a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see sort of how that balances out. And Batee, right? He entered the portal and came back in. He already did it. Does he come out of the spring and go, I'm not really in any better spot? I think I'll probably just bolt. Certainly, that'd be possible. I'd be shocked if Jeremiah Cobb left. I would not be surprised at all. And I'm not saying he is. I don't know. I'm not like being cryptic. It wouldn't shock me if Batee went back into the portal. But Alston's probably a guy we probably don't talk about enough too. That missed time, got hurt in that A&M game, missed time, got all the ability in the world. And man, if he can stay healthy,
I'm like the number one fan in his fan club.
Yeah.
I'm such a fan of Damari Alston. I have been since he was a recruit. I put him in the top 10 in my class rankings when Auburn signed him, to which people were like, that's not a good ranking. Whatever. I don't care. He's that good to me. His vision is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a good problem there. It's a good problem. It's not a bad problem by any means. It's a good problem, but it's going to have to be sorted out somehow. It is. That's just the natural law of college football right now.
Sure.
The hypothetical that's up there, Cobb gets all of Jarquez's touches. Does he have the same, better, or worse production in terms of yards, touchdowns, and catches last year? So basically you're asking, is Jeremiah Cobb every bit as good as Jarquez Hunter right now?
Yeah.
He's just a freshman. He's just an experience thing. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, experience matters, so you can't just take that out of the equation. He's pretty freaking talented, though. I wrote that in that piece that'll come out. I think he's the most gifted, like, running back on the roster, all things being considered.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
One thing he did say was talking about catching out of the backfield. I'm curious to see if didn't he say I'm the guy, or like I'm the pass catching running back or something like that.
And honestly, just like you said with Keontae, where he didn't say much, Cobb didn't say much to us either when we interviewed him. But that was the one quote I ran with, because if he believes that and he thinks that's his role, is that a good reason to stay? That was the question I was asking myself. And again, I'm not saying the guy's leaving or anything. I'm questioning it. I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, of how rosters work in college football right now.
Sure.
If he thinks that's his role and he thinks he's good enough at it, and they really use him in that role, he seemed to hint at that being a big role for him, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say the running back room is going to be interesting past Jarquez Hunter. Carries out of the backfield, catches out of the backfield, sort of how that room is worked this fall, I think is going to be interesting, because you got to get Cobb a little bit more involved consistently. All right, 2 more positions to go. We're going to do quarterback last.
Okay.
Who do you think has more? Put that back up there, Zach. I couldn't remember what it said, but more touchdown yards, Austin or Hunter? Who has more production? I guess
this year.
Yeah.
Well, yards, I'll go Hunter. I mean, he's just going to be the workhorse. I feel like touchdowns. I don't know. I mean, that touchdowns is like become such a where you are on the field, play by play scheme thing. Like somebody could be you could have a guy that gets. I mean, what didn't Cobb have how many touchdowns did Cobb have last year in terms of total touches? I mean, Cobb he had 2, but he was a guy that at one point was like touchdown every few carries. So I don't know that I could guess touchdowns, but I would say Hunter's going to still lead the team in rushing.
I'm going to give my hot take, and I should have given this other night. I think by season's end, Damari Alston passes Jarquez Hunter as the number 1 running back on the depth chart.
The number 1 fan in the fan club is happy to hear that, Alan.
Wouldn't surprise me. Damari's got, I'm not going to compare him because I think Trey Mason was dramatically underrated. He's got a little bit of that. Low, compact, got better speed than you think, good vision, tougher than you think, physical, well built. Like he's a little bit of that. I think Trey was better, but I think Damari's got a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a little bit of that. I think he's actually good I think he's good in pass pro as well, which helps you, especially if you're going to go tempo.
Yeah.
So that's an added plus with him. And I love his vision in this offense with the natural creases and holes it's going to create for him, especially if you're able to get that RPO game going. Like, I don't think you can go ahead, Cole.
Sorry. I keep cutting you off, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man.
To kill the cliche, I guess, I say vision every single time with Damari Alston. I want to expound on that. I don't care who the most talented running back is in the room. That's the last thing I worry about. Yeah. Who maximizes their carries? Who gets the most yards on their carries? And for that case, there's absolutely a case to be made for Jarquez Hunter because he's hard to tackle, very hard to tackle. But there are plays to me, and I said this with Tank Bigsby when he was at Auburn. Vision was lacking. There are times when you don't go where you're supposed to go and you give up yards. You leave yards on the field. Can't do that. Damari Alston maximizes his carries to me. He always makes the most of what's out there on a given play. That's why I'm a fan.
I don't disagree. And I don't disagree with Alan's take on Alston. If that started to happen, I'd go, that's probably about right. Wouldn't shock me. Sure. All right, 2 more. Let's move on to offensive line. We hit on it a little bit earlier. A-Day, they didn't dominate. We heard great things about Connor Lew in the spring, that he could be an All-American type center. We know he can be that. Dylan Wade moves down to guard. Jeremiah Wright's at guard. Can he stay healthy? Can the light come on for him? Percy Lewis at tackle. Xavier Miller at tackle. Tyler Johnson's coming on at tackle. You got Seth Wilford that played a good bit. Dylan Senda that's in there. How do you guys feel about the offensive line? Any concerns with that starting 5? Tyler Johnson's competing there, but how do we feel about the group, the depth, the starting 5? Is it a better group last year? Gunnar Britton I thought was vastly underrated, but I still think it can be a little bit better overall group. Alan, where do you think this group is at heading into the summer?
I like where this group is at. And obviously the more they play together, the more they gel. It is the ultimate team position because you have to function as a unit and you have to work in concert with the quarterback, completely understanding where he's going to be in the pocket, the nuanced part of the running game. I like the experience. I like that these are guys that all have competitive reps for the most part. And even in your 2 deep, you have guys that have competitive reps, like Jaden Muskrat, who's played at the college level. You have Tate Johnson, who's had snaps at the college level. Tyler Johnson's young, obviously, and Seth Wilford, if he's your backup right tackle, but he's got competitive reps at JUCO, which is significantly better than high school. But you've got some versatility there. I loved what I saw from Faber Edwin. So far at this point, he's more advanced than I thought he would be because what I saw of him in high school, he was very raw. And so to see kind of how he was in pass pro, I thought he was smoother and more athletic than I anticipated. I'll say it like that. So a lot of versatility with this. If you could get another offensive lineman in the portal that was a multi-year guy, I probably would do it. I think it would be worth that to get your numbers where they need to be. They're only at 15 scholarship players. I think Hugh Freeze likes to have it in the 16 to 17 range, as do most coaches, just to make sure in case you have injury, you've got enough scholarship players available. But at the end of the day, it's about getting your best 8 prepared and ready each and every week. And I think they have 8 guys that they can lean on moving into this year, and you can put your best players on the field. And you're seeing it right now with a guy like Dylan Wade. I think he's still adjusting some to playing guard, But I think once it all comes together for him, he's going to be a guy that's going to truly dominate inside and is going to give you somebody next to Connor Lew and Jeremiah Wright. And if Jeremiah Wright, Cole, you said it, I believe it, as far as from a skill level standpoint, he might have the highest ceiling on this team, specifically from the interior position. He's got the right mindset when it comes to being nasty and wanting to just absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage. If the technical part is there for him, if he's consistent in all the things that he needs to do, I think he has an opportunity to be truly special this year. And then does Xavier Miller continue to progress from last year? Because that's a big thing. Both of the tackles, they had highs last year and they had lows at their respective school. Obviously, and Xavier and Tyler Miller here. You know, our starting left tackle coming in from Mississippi State, I think he started 7 games, and it was a little bit of a mixed bag for him, where some games he was really, really good. And other games, specifically in the run game, it wasn't necessarily what it needed to be. So does he continue to get his body in shape and play to the level he's capable of? I hope so, because Percy Lewis is a mountain of a man. I mean, if everything comes together for him, that is a big boy that needs to stay off a Harley motorcycle, but that's a completely different story.
For sure. What do you think, Cole?
If I'm giving somebody an MVP from the offensive line, I give it to Percy.
There you go.
Thought he played really well.
Whole spring or the
A-Day game. The A-Day game, yeah. Spring's going to be Connor Lew, but A-Day game, I from what I've seen so far, it was Percy. He had a good day. Dylan Wade struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying to transition there. I'm still worried about pass protection a little bit with this offensive line. I don't think it's exactly where it needs to be yet, and that was the biggest issue to me a year ago. Of course, you know, off of face value, you look at it and you're like, man, they didn't run the ball well, but I don't look into that much with the A-Day game, especially with what they were trying to do with the outside stuff. I've said this before, and I really, really want to reiterate this, and this is why I love this offensive line room right now and what Jake Thornton's done putting it together. 2 things. Number 1, stars don't matter to me here. Stars matter to me other places. I couldn't care less here. Just get it right. Just get it right. And right now, I think a lot of things are going right with the offensive line room because number 2 is I think the days of having 5 gelled in, penciled in starters are over. I think they're over. I don't think there's going to be 5 guys that are in there for every snap of the game. I think you're going to have rotations now. That's just the way the game has trended the last couple of years. I think Percy Lewis could maybe flip in and out with Tyler Johnson. I think he's proven enough to play. I think I got to give a shout out to Braden Joyner.
Yeah.
Braden Joyner. I didn't give you a lot of credit, man, and I'm sorry. You're starting to come on a little bit. I have seen some good things. I've heard some good things, mainly in the run game for him. But I feel like it needs to be said. He's had a good spring, and that's not just from what I've heard, but from actually watching. He has had a good spring.
He's a good leverage player for sure.
Yeah. But what I love about the room is because I think it's true that you don't just have 5 guys anymore. You're going to have probably 7 that need to play in every game, and I think Auburn's got 7. I think Auburn's got 8.
I do too.
That can really play in every game.
Who are the other 3? Tyler Johnson's is probably the top backup. Who are the next 2 you think that are Seth Wilford?
Tyler Johnson. I think Seth Wilford is getting to that point, and I think obviously Tate Johnson's a veteran and looked pretty good from what I saw a couple times. So if you needed him, now I don't think he's going to switch in with Connor Lew, but he's able to play is what I'm trying to say.
I might even go Eston Harris. I thought I thought he flashed some on tape to me, maybe over Seth Wilford, just because Tyler Johnson's going to be your swing guy at tackle. I think he could play right or left and probably would be the first one in the game. But if you're looking for an interior guy, no.
What's it say? Date is set.
Sorry. Proceed.
No, you're good.
Tell us the date.
Yeah, I'm going to put that one in quotation marks and go allegedly. But
yeah, allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly date is set. But I think maybe Eston Harris might be your 8, but you're right. I mean, maybe you even go 9, Cole, if you throw Seth Wilford and Eston Harris into that. So that goes back to your rotations.
I think Muskrat may have been banged up. I think he may have been banged up a little bit, but that's another guy that can absolutely help you.
Yeah, and that's one I'm curious about. Like, he came in, transferred in. Where does he fit in? I mean,
I think he
could
missed
be a
the
second-time
practice.
transfer and leave?
I
Yeah.
think I saw him standing out of practice, Justin, maybe one towards the end there, so that might be the problem. But don't forget about him. He's somebody that can absolutely play.
And it could give you a pinch tackle too. I mean, this is a guy that can play offensive tackle and offensive guard. And when I was looking at the 3 deep the other day, who's going to be that third left tackle? And you talk about not penciling guys in, but you can't help but do that. And I think it would be Jaden Muskrat. I think he's possibly your second team left guard and maybe your third team left tackle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dylan send another young player that I'd like to see continue to develop and stay in there. And Edwin, by the way, you mentioned Faber Edwin. I definitely echo you on that one. Jake Thornton talked about that being a guy that's not as raw as he thought he was going to be. And I even saw in the practice portion, he had a great rep against might have been Keldrick. It was somebody, I can't remember who it was against. It was one of the more talented defensive ends, but a great rep. And so I think that's a dude that we heard some really positive stuff on. All right, last position, drum roll, the most important, right? Quarterbacks. So Cole mentioned earlier, not necessarily seeing, I don't know what the word he was, dramatic improvement or whatever in the position. I would agree. I don't know like what I think that's subjective, right? Dramatic or like leaps and bounds better. I do think from listening to the coaches talk, from watching practices and stuff, I do think that room took steps forward in decision making, in understanding what is required of them within the offense. I think that room took steps forward. I think Peyton probably took a couple steps forward in terms of understanding that. I think Holden, I think they all took incremental steps forward. So I think you exit spring and that room is better than when you entered spring. The question is, how much better? And do you still feel the need to go get a portal quarterback in the spring? That's up to Hugh Freeze and Ken Austin. There's no way I know that. But I do think the room got better. I thought they all showed flashes in the spring game. I thought Peyton was really good, 9 of 13, I think, for 133 yards or so. Probably had one really bad throw, like on a slant that was behind, but he had an unbelievable RPO throw, like a fade that was on the money. Had a couple of good runs. Obviously, Hank Brown had the long one to Cam, and then let's see. But it was funny about Hank. Hank just comes in there and just goes for a touchdown. But Hank Brown finished 5 of 12 in that game. Holden finished 7 of 10, but only 46 yards. So Holden was good, but didn't really take any deep shots. And then, of course, Walker was 5 of 13 for 83 yards. I think Walker's got the potential, but he's a ways away, not just understanding, but there's some mechanical things that I've seen even going back in the spring, still airmail some stuff. He'll get there, but he's not part of the equation. I think we can all say Walker White is not part of the equation. He will be in the future. He is not part of the equation right now. It's Peyton, Holden, Hank. Does Holden stay around after the spring? How do you feel, Alan, about the group and then the portal situation?
I think I'm with you. I think the group improved. I think they took a step forward. Did they take enough of a step forward to truly complement this offense in a way that we're going to have a vastly improved overall production? That's to be determined, in my opinion. But I did think that Peyton Thorne has really kind of started to get full command of what Hugh Freeze is trying to do and trying to execute. I think he is good in the RPO type situation as far as from a read standpoint. And I also think, and we talked about this some on the recruiting show, but I think that the development of having the earpiece in and being able to help him with some of his progressions and reads is going to really help him take another step this fall. Because in Hugh Freeze's offense, where you have multiple options on every play, and this isn't different from other offenses, but when with a no-huddle team and you get up and by formation, you can ID what's going to be there or should be there if everybody makes the play they're supposed to make. You can let Peyton know, hey, option 1, 2, and 3 on this player killed. Look at 4 or 5.
Yeah.
How much does that help him narrow things down and say, okay, I'm headed in this direction formationally, whether I read it or not. Somebody just told me this is what I need to look. And so long as the post-snap adjustment doesn't fool him, then I think he's going to have an opportunity to make plays. And it's going to help having experienced play callers in Hugh Freeze, who's done it in this league and done it at a high level. A guy like Derek Nix, who's been around a really good play caller in Lane Kiffin. And then Ken Austin, who played professionally himself in the Canadian Football League, has developed guys in that league, has also been an offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, and then again at Liberty, so he understands Hugh Freeze's system. As a fantastic quarterback developer, he helps guys with their sight adjustments. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but I think Peyton did take a step forward. I felt like when he was in the game, he had full command of everything that was going on in there, and that's what you want to see from a quarterback. He's not the most naturally gifted passer on this team. I mean, I think the most arm talent, and it goes without question, you saw it. When he's on, I mean, it's hard to beat what comes out of our freshman's hand, right? Like, I mean, he can absolutely let it rip. But you're right, his feet are not always where they need to be. He's not always accurate. So I think if you add a quarterback, and that's going to be the question. We need to lose a quarterback first, and then I think you go out and you add what's best available in the portal at that point. I mean,
do you need to lose one? Or do you just say, I'm going to go get one, everybody, and if Holden or Hank or whatever, if you want to leave, cool. You can stay if you want, but we're adding one. Or is it – or does Hugo, I don't want to do that. I want to, if one of them wants to leave, then I'll add one. But if they all want to stay, I don't want to.
It's that delicate balance again, right? You know what I mean? I think Hugh is on record as saying he wants to have some organic growth and development in that room and not necessarily go out and bring in the hot transfer every time somebody enters the portal. But
very much, yeah.
At the end of the day, do you like your depth? If you're Hugh Freeze, do you love the fact that if something happens to Peyton Thorne, you feel like you can still lean on Holden Geriner and Hank Brown to carry you to 7 or 8 victories in the SEC? And if you do, then you stick with it. And if you don't, you got to go get somebody that helps you get to that point. Because I don't think you can go into this season, have an injury to your starter, and end up with 5 or 6 victories and think, okay, that was a successful season. So it's a dangerous game, man. And that's something only Hugh Freeze can answer. If it were me, I probably would be shopping for a quarterback. But it's not me. I didn't see every practice. He knows what he has on this roster. Right. I do think they have some talent. So I'm not going to question his decision, whatever he chooses to do. But I don't love – I think Hank Brown's got something to him, but I don't love what I saw from both him and Holden in that spring game. And you don't want to be beholden to the moment and judge people off just one performance. But I can't say I walk away from that and think, damn, I love our quarterback depth. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel that way.
Yeah. And Cole, toss this question into your reaction about the quarterback room, which is from the Halo King. Do you feel that Hank Brown overtook Geriner for the backup position? Toss that into whatever your opinion is on the quarterback room.
Yeah. Based on spring, I say yes. The A-Day game doesn't really tell that, but based on spring, I would put Hank at number 2. Yeah. My takeaway is this. First, I have a question for both of you. What would you say is Hugh Freeze's offensive identity as a play caller?
Like all time? Or
is he a drop back pass guy? Is he a run game guy? What is he?
I think he's a balanced guy, and he puts his players in position to be successful. He does what it takes to be successful, and typically likes to lean into complementary football.
Well, as far as scheme goes, RPO, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's about. That is what he has made his living on. All right.
For sure.
Who ran the most RPOs at A-Day?
Peyton Thorne.
Did Hank and Holden really run
many
of those?
They had a handful mixed in there, but not a lot.
First thing I noticed in doing this play script, which, I don't even care if anybody reads it. It's for me. I got to have it to be able to do these shows and talk. I got to have it.
I hear you.
First thing I noticed is 5 plays for Peyton Thorne. Each one of them was an RPO.
Yeah.
Even one that he handed it off on was an RPO. It had an RPO attached. He decided to hand it off. The very first 3 plays for a quarterback not Peyton Thorne were drop back passes. And I know for a fact that is not Hugh Freeze's identity. It's not what he wants to be. In fact, college football is trending away from the drop back pass a little bit because of how good edge rushers are, especially in the SEC.
Sure.
And that was telling me, that told me everything I need to know about the quarterback race. It's Peyton and then everybody else, and it's really not that close.
What did you see from Walker? Have you charted Walker's plays yet?
Haven't gotten to Walker yet.
Yeah.
I've gotten to just a couple plays of Holden, and I'm actually at the play where Hank Brown connects with Cam Coleman on the seam throw. So, look, that was a great throw by Hank Brown.
Yeah,
that was a good read. It was good timing. It was good everything. He has a lot of those plays. It's consistency. And I'm going to ask every time, can you run the RPOs? If you can't, you're not Hugh Freeze's quarterback.
Well, that's what I mean, Hank Brown, but Hank Brown was a guy that he went after at Liberty. I mean, that's not a guy he inherited. He specifically targeted Hank Brown and watched him play in person and had RPO elements, obviously at Liberty.
He also went after Malik Willis, Caden Salter. Those are guys who I would say operate the RPO at a high level. I don't know. I haven't seen from Hank Brown. That's the thing. I haven't seen it. I can't say he can't do it because I haven't seen it. He didn't give it to him very much. That's what I'm intrigued by. Why didn't he do that? That's my question, I guess.
May have just been trying to feature a different, maybe he was trying to get Peyton comfortable, and that's what Peyton's comfortable with, so that he would have an impressive showing at A-Day, understanding the people that are watching that game, wanting to ensure that Peyton had a good performance. Maybe it's also a mix of trying to get some things on tape and seeing some things from Hank and Holden that they do well also. So I'm not exactly sure what the thought process there with you. I did notice the same thing. And I would tell you also from an offensive identity standpoint, Cole, you said the RPO. I think the word that comes behind that is tempo. And those are the two things that Hugh Freeze built his brand off of. And I do think that plays to Peyton Thorne's skill set. You know what I mean?
1,000%. Yeah.
I'll have y'all know my very first game play script I ever did was Auburn, Florida, 2019. That was the first one.
Ugh.
Well, I was pissed that day.
I was at that game. Maybe the hottest game I've ever been to, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
Oh my gosh, it was awful.
It was insane.
Hey, BO, body odor. Anyway, I was at the game. I've never smelled so much body odor in my life. Anyway,
be easy talking about Keith like that, okay?
Yeah, that's a little.
Love that. And jorts. Nice. Yeah, body odor and jorts. Body odor and jorts. Anyway, no, that was the first day I ever put it together. To this day, I have never missed plays. Like I missed plays at the A-Day game. I'm typing, just trying to get one sentence out about the play before, and the next play's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dang, I can't. I don't know how I'm going to do the breakdowns this year. It's going to be impossible if they're going that fast. Now, they're not going to go that fast all the time. They're just trying to see if they can. But
the only shot they do have of going that fast is with Peyton Thorne.
Absolutely.
I think so.
His clock is so much better than the other quarterbacks. I think that's what stood out the most. And I know what the narrative is on Peyton Thorne. He's a hated guy for some reason. Let's just state the obvious.
Well,
a lot of people really.
He's a highly critiqued guy.
Oh, there you go.
That's a nicer way to put it. And a lot of it is warranted. I would agree with a lot of it. A lot of it is not. I think it's very split on the criticism he gets. Sure. His clock, though, looks very good to me right now.
Yeah.
And it always has on RPOs. I've always liked the way he operates in RPO.
Quarterback is always a lightning rod position. You get if things are going right, you get a ton of praise, and if things are going wrong, you're the first person that gets the blame. It's just how that position goes. I do think that he struggled in some things last year, but again, Hugh Freeze wouldn't have parted ways with Philip Montgomery if things were going the way they should have gone from, from an offensive flow standpoint, the overall organization. Like that wouldn't have happened. So I think people need to understand that they're going to right the ship somewhat, that Peyton's going to be given more of an opportunity to be successful this year. And it's on him. It really is. At this point, I think they'll go out, they'll get another wide receiver. They've got a good offensive line in front of him, good running backs. But Peyton Thornton is going to have to capitalize this year, and it's going to be paramount on the coaching staff to put him in a position to be successful, because you guys are right. He's what gives Auburn the best opportunity. What's on the current roster right now, he's the quarterback that gives you the best opportunity to win and to win right now. And so you need to maximize his skill set, and hopefully they can lean into that.
We'll end on this question in a second. We'll end with this question from Jack. But just to wrap up quarterbacks, I think the other element that we don't know is, outside of we hear good things, I think Peyton is far more comfortable with Austin as the quarterback coach, and now being really involved. Kent Austin obviously was involved last year, but there's only so much he could do. There's things he couldn't do. They have a phenomenal relationship from what I understand. And from talking to Kent Austin, by the way, super impressive guy. Just to listen to, like, awesome temperament. I think his temperament and Peyton Thorne's temperament is on the money. I think they're going to make each other better. So I think that is a big thing to keep in mind. And then the terminology, it sounds like Peyton is comfortable with the RPO terminology and things like that. I think Peyton comes out of this spring in a much better position, whether Cam Coleman is on the team or not, whether the receivers are better or not. I think he comes away in a much better position of understanding expectations, having a great relationship with Ken Austin, and just that whole going through a spring, knowing the offense. I don't even know if there's a quarterback they could bring in. I mean, maybe. I don't know who's out there. I don't know who. To me, if you even bring in a portal quarterback, to me, that's what you did with Peyton last year. And it is hard to come in the summer and learn it. The only guy would be Salter from Liberty, who kind of is familiar with it, and it wouldn't be a blank slate for him. Like, that's probably the best option to hit the ground running, to legitimately maybe beat out Peyton Thorne. I don't know of a guy that you could bring in post spring that's going to learn everything, learn expectations, all that stuff, and then go beat Peyton Thorne out right now. I don't know. I do think that I do expect a lot more from Peyton Thorne going into the summer. I think they're going to get a lot better. They have to. I think he's going to be a part of leading that charge. The summer workouts are huge. The one thing I liked about Hank is he makes quick decisions. I'll give him that. Guy gets rid of the football.
He does.
I love that part.
And he'll push it. He'll push it downfield too.
Yeah, he will.
I do like that about him. There's things about Hank that I do like a lot. Really.
He's a gunslinger. I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say. But probably the best thing, listen, Hugh Freeze said after the game, I thought all the guys made pretty good decisions in the RPO game. And then, this isn't about me, but one of the comments I made during the game, Freeze actually reposted on Sunday that I would say is telling. And that was, my comment was, it was like third quarter, maybe late third quarter. And I said, hey, it looks like Hugh Freeze is giving Holden and Hank late game situations here. Looks like he's seen what he needs to see from Peyton Thorne, because it was like late in the game's close, and it was Hank and Holden out there going back and forth. And I said, it looks like he's given those guys a chance to show something late game. And then my last comment was, I think all three have shown flashes of some good things today, and he reposted that. So I think that was Peyton's the guy. He wanted to give Holden and Hank some late game opportunities, see what they're about, but he saw good things from all of them. So I do think they come out of a spring in a better situation. Whether that means Peyton can go lead this team, and we'll end on this, whether this means this team can go win 9 or 10 games, I don't know. I still think they're a year away. I still think their roster's a year away. It's a hard schedule, man. Oklahoma is a massive game.
Yes.
Missouri and Kentucky back-to-back on the road are massive. Probably got to get one. Like, there's a couple of points. There's just those points in the season. It's like, if you win it, you can get to 8. If you lose it, you might get to 6, whatever. There's a couple of those points. I think it's similar to last year. I think that's probably a floor of 6 and a ceiling of 8 or 9. Georgia on the road, Alabama on the road. That's tough. A&M, another one late. Huge swing game. I think it's a similar floor and ceiling of last year. I think they could be a little bit better. They should be better. But I think it's a similar floor and ceiling. They should get to 6. I'm never dropping the floor below 6. That's ridiculous. But I don't know that I would say the ceiling is even, gosh, I don't know about 9. That's pushing it to me. I think realistically 8, 9 is pushing it even as a ceiling. But they should not lose. They should not fall to 5 wins. That shouldn't happen. They're a 6. I think they're 6 to 8 right now.
I mean,
I don't know if anything in the portal is going to change that. I don't know if they do anything in the portal that makes me change that at all.
Oh, I do. I think there's some upgrades to be had. I do. I think there's
win.
For at least for one win. If I'm naming a floor and ceiling, I think there's some upgrades to be have in order to improve my floor more so than my ceiling. In other words, right now I'm with you. I am 100% in agreement that 6 is probably the floor. But if you get another experienced receiver, you get a couple of interior D linemen. Now I'm thinking maybe I move that floor up to 7. Ceiling stays the same, I think. Floor moves from 6 to 7. I need to see a couple of good pieces come in for that to happen. And I think that could or will happen. So that's where I'm at right now. Did I say 4-6 before portal? Ceiling 9 is where I'll go with that right now.
So last year my floor was 5, and I truly believe that we could have gotten to 5 last year and almost did. I think this year the floor is 6, and I think the ceiling is probably 8. Now, my ceiling grows. If you add those 2 interior defensive linemen and a veteran wide receiver, then I think your ceiling gets to 9, and I feel much more comfortable about being probably at 8 wins. Right now, I think you probably end up 7-5, given the current construct of the team for what you have. But you add those pieces like you talked about, a veteran wide receiver, a veteran edge, and 2 interior defensive linemen. Well, now I think you can definitely get to 8, and that's where I would love for Auburn to be 8-4 this year. That is a 2-game jump from last season that shows good progress.
Ideal.
Right, that's ideal. You get an opportunity to get a probably a mid-level bowl game, maybe an Outback Bowl, maybe something like something of that magnitude where you're moving up against who your postseason competition would be against, and so that kind of ups the prestige some. And if you win that game, it helps elevate expectation moving into year 3, which is where we all want to be. And the name of the game at this point, obviously, it's a scoreboard business. You need to put wins, but you need to win enough to make sure that your recruiting stays where it is and you can't be negatively recruited against, because talent acquisition is still the most important part of this next season.
Yes.
You're not at the championship level right now. That's where you want to live, is in championship type competition. And to get there, you have to continue to increase the floor of your roster and the ceiling. And to me, still the best pieces of clay are found in the high school game. That is where you get the best pieces. You can get some finished products from the portal that will absolutely help you cement your floor. But to increase that ceiling, you've got to have high school recruiting. I think Hugh Freeze knows that. But if you fall backwards, and you talked about 5 games, Justin, that this team shouldn't have that. If you find yourself in a Billy Napier type situation where you slide backwards that way, it puts you in a really difficult spot from a recruiting territory standpoint. And that would be very counterproductive to what you've accomplished to this point. So I think you got to live in that 7 to 8 game window, and you need to do what you need to do in the portal in the spring to make sure you get closer to 8 than you do to 7 or 6.
Really quick, because I know we got to wrap this up, but there was a question, and it's buried in the comments now. Does Auburn's spring game was really early for those. I mean, there's a lot of spring games still to happen, and a lot of spring still going
spring
on.
Camp in freaking February.
Right. Does this help you with the portal, in y'all's opinion?
It should.
Absolutely it does, because it lets you know and have conversations with. So you want to be well prepared moving into the portal window of knowing who's going to be moving off your roster. This gives you a week to have hard conversations with players so that you have a good feel for what's going to happen. It also allows you to set the deck chairs here at home to fortify the players you want to retain, because retaining, and Hugh Freeze talked about this, I'm not recreating the wheel here. but retaining the players you want to keep on your roster is as big a part of recruiting as anything right now.
Yeah.
And so they need to identify who those players are, make sure they're taken care of from whatever it takes to make sure that they're secure, whether that's NIL or other conversations so that they feel better about their place and whether it's the offense or the defense, and kind of move forward from there. So I do think it was a stroke of genius by Hugh Freeze to make sure you got this done with a full week to prepare for what's going to happen when it comes to the 15th. And then you let the madness ensue, because I do believe that there's going to be another 1,000+ kids in the portal. I mean, it's, coming from all different directions. And man, it's just, I would hate to be Cole and Jeffrey right now covering this. And I would also hate to be a college football coach having to experience this.
We're gonna be employing some help from Mr. Justin Hokanson as well. Don't worry.
I bet you are.
Listen, I'm only responsible for the players that go into the portal. I'm not chasing all the freaking targets. But yeah, there will be some. And look, you got additional time to tamper too.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Everybody's doing it, man. I mean, is it there are no rules anymore. So why not?
I was going to say that, and I don't care anymore. Look, this is the reality of what we're living in here. It's not. I know a lot of I've seen this question several times where they go, well, do you think a good D lineman's going to be in the portal to get? If Auburn wants one to be, there will be.
Sure. Just like any other school. I mean, look, it's not. I think people get locked in, specifically in college football, get locked into their team, right? And so when you start talking about tampering, people automatically think that you're talking about just your team. This is college football, the state of college football, period. Justin, you know this as well as anybody. I mean, it's just, there are no rules. There's no way to enforce the rules. The NCAA is absolutely handcuffed in what they can do. And recruiting departments right now are making up how they recruit players one court injunction at a time. I mean, it truly has gotten to that standpoint.
Yeah, and you just go around when you're tampering. You just talk to the high school coach, you talk to the player, and you just say, hey, listen, we want him in, talk him into being in. And the high school coach says, hey, they want you in. You want to go in? And if you ever try to take him to court, like we never talked to the kid. We never talked to him. We just talked to the coach. And we talked to the coach about, the Masters tournament coming up. I don't even know what you're talking about.
There you go. I mean,
and there will never be a way to stop a player reaching out to a school wanting in. Never. You can't stop it. There's nothing you can do.
No. Absolutely not. And some of these guys even have agents now, or what they consider themselves agent, third-party runners.
Look at the dude from Iowa, man. What's his face? He's already going back to Bama. The port ain't even open. He's already announced he's going back.
Caden Proctor.
When that happens, we're like, okay, like tampering, right? Like what else is that? Like, what do you think? The guy just woke up one morning and decided to do it on his own? Alabama was like, well, that works out for us. Good.
Right.
Nice.
Awfully convient that Caden Proctor just decided to come back. But
nice. We'll recruit that guy in a few weeks.
I think it's just called recruiting now. Tampering is just recruiting.
It is. It is just recruiting now. And until they move into some kind of collective bargaining where you can, set a set of rules that aren't a violation of antitrust and you can have security on your roster, that's just the world they're going to live in, man. It is what it is. And so you might as well take advantage. Everybody else is. That's for certain.
All right, boys. Y'all crushed it today. By the way, Barning Knight says, do we have a controversy at kicker? Nah. Alex McPherson didn't miss last year. But man, it's awesome to have Towns Magoo on the team. That's a sweet get and steal from Lane Kiffin, and that kid's awesome.
I agree.
So that was huge. But no, McPherson will be the guy. And I said, look, McPherson went 13-13 last year. Magoo just went 7-7. So in competition, Auburn kickers are 20 for the last 20. It's not bad. Not bad.
Bro,
all right, fellas, y'all crushed that, man. If you missed it or if you're tuning in now, whatever, this will be. You can go back and watch this on YouTube. It'll be on all the podcast platforms as well, just in podcast form. You can listen to it at your leisure. Go to auburnlive.com, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. We'll see you on the corner message board at Auburn Live. Great job, guys. We'll see everybody soon. Well, I don't know what we'll do. We'll do maybe a post-portal kind of show, probably. I'm sure you guys will do it on the live call-in shows and stuff, but probably the next couple of weeks during portal season will be really interesting as well. So All right, fellas, let's get out of here.
Sounds good.
All right, see y'all.